I woke up in a billionaire's bed, and his entire family thinks I'm his fiancée. Nora Hayes never imagined a canceled flight would destroy her life. Or save it. One wrong keycard, one penthouse suite, one furious billionaire in a towel. And suddenly, she's trapped in a lie that could either ruin her forever or give her the second chance she's been desperately clawing for. This is the story of how a broke designer and a single dad hotel heir faked an engagement that fooled the world. But what happens when the cameras stop flashing and the lie starts feeling like the only truth that matters? Stay until the end. You won't believe how this turns out. And drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The universe had a sick sense of humor, and Nora Hayes was the punchline. She stood in the lobby of the Whitmore Grand Hotel at 2:17 in the morning, mascara smudged under her eyes, her carry-on bag held together with duct tape, and her last shred of dignity hanging by a thread thinner than the coffee they'd served on her canceled flight. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we don't have a reservation under that name." The front desk clerk smiled with the kind of polite sympathy that made Nora want to scream. "I booked it 3 weeks ago." Her voice cracked. She hated how desperate she sounded, but exhaustion had stripped away her ability to pretend. "Hayes? Nora Hayes. Room 412. The clerk's fingers flew across the keyboard, his expression shifting from apologetic to confused. "I see a cancellation here from 2 days ago." "I didn't cancel anything." "It says here the cancellation was confirmed via email." Nora's stomach dropped. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands, scrolling through her inbox with mounting horror. There it was, buried between spam and a passive-aggressive message from her ex-boss, a confirmation email she'd never opened. The booking site had changed their cancellation policy. She'd missed the deadline by 6 hours. This can't be happening. She pressed her palm against the marble counter, trying to steady herself. "I need a room. Any room. I have a presentation tomorrow morning at 9, and I've been awake for..." She checked her phone. 21 hours. "I wish I could help, but we're completely booked. There's a medical conference in town, and..." "Please." The word came out strangled. Nora hadn't cried in front of a stranger in years, but she was about to break that streak. "I'll take anything. A closet, a storage room. I'll sleep in the lobby." The clerk's expression softened. He glanced around, then leaned closer. "Look, technically I'm not supposed to do this, but..." He slid a keycard across the counter. "Suite 4200. It's being held for a VIP guest, but they're not checking in until tomorrow afternoon. You can use it tonight, but you have to be out by 9 a.m., not a minute later." Nora grabbed the keycard like it was a life preserver. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "Don't mention it. Seriously. Don't mention it. I could lose my job." She was already heading toward the elevator, dragging her pathetic excuse for luggage behind her. The wheels squeaked against the polished floor, announcing her poverty to everyone in earshot. Not that there was anyone around to judge her. The lobby was empty except for a night janitor and a couple making out near the fountain. The elevator climbed. Nora watched the numbers light up. 10, 20, 30, 40, and tried not to think about the presentation she was supposed to give in less than 7 hours. The presentation that was supposed to save her career. The presentation she'd spent 3 months preparing for, betting everything on this one chance to prove she wasn't a failure. The doors opened onto the 42nd floor, and Nora's breath caught. She'd stayed in nice hotels before, back when she had a real job, back when her design firm was actually making money instead of drowning in debt. But this was different. The hallway was wider than her entire apartment. Actual paintings hung on the walls, not prints. The carpet was so thick her suitcase wheels left tracks. Suite 4200 was at the end of the hall. Nora pressed the keycard against the reader, and the lock clicked open. "Holy shit," she whispered. Calling it a suite was like calling the ocean damp. The living room was bigger than most New York studios, with floor-to-ceiling windows that turned the Manhattan skyline into wallpaper. The furniture looked like it cost more than her car. There was a baby grand piano in the corner, for God's sake. Nora dropped her bag and walked through the space like she was touring a museum. Marble bathroom with a tub the size of a small pool. Kitchen with appliances she didn't know the names of. A bedroom with a bed so large it could sleep a family of 4. She should shower. She should prep for tomorrow. She should do a lot of things. Instead, she face-planted onto the bed and let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Maybe her luck was finally turning around. Nora woke up to someone screaming. No, not screaming, yelling. A man's voice, rough with anger and confusion, coming from somewhere close. Too close. She sat up so fast the room spun. Daylight poured through the massive windows, bright and accusing. Her phone said 7:43 a.m. She'd slept through her alarm. She'd slept through 3 alarms. Who the hell are you? Nora's head snapped toward the doorway. A man stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing nothing but a towel wrapped around his waist, and an expression that could melt steel. Water dripped from his dark hair onto shoulders that looked like they'd been carved by someone who took their job very seriously. He had the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers, sharp jawline, intense dark eyes, the suggestion of stubble that somehow looked intentional. He was also furious. I said, "Who the hell are you and what are you doing in my suite?" Nora's brain, still foggy with sleep, struggled to process the situation. She looked down at herself, still fully clothed in yesterday's wrinkled jeans and t-shirt, thank God, then back at the half-naked stranger who was apparently not a stranger at all. "Your suite?" The words came out like a squeak. "My suite, my hotel. And you have exactly 10 seconds to explain why you're in my bed before I call security." Nora scrambled off the mattress, nearly tripping over her own feet. "There's been a mistake. The front desk, they gave me a key card. I wasn't supposed to—" "A key card to the penthouse level?" His eyes narrowed. "Do I look stupid to you?" "Huh? No. I mean, I didn't know it was the penthouse. I thought it was just a regular room. They said the guest wasn't checking in until this afternoon, and I just needed somewhere to sleep for a few hours because my flight got canceled and my reservation was canceled and—" She was rambling. She needed to stop rambling. The man crossed his arms over his bare chest, somehow looking more intimidating despite wearing nothing but terry cloth. "Let me get this straight. You broke into my suite because your flight got canceled." "I didn't break in. They gave me a key. A key to my private residence that you used to sleep in my bed." His voice was cold enough to cause frostbite. "You know what that sounds like?" Nora's face burned. "I swear I'm not—" "Whatever you think I am, I'm not some stalker or thief or— Look, you can check my bag. I haven't touched anything. I just slept here. That's it." He studied her for a long moment, his gaze moving from her tangled hair to her wrinkled clothes to her duct-taped suitcase with an expression that made her feel about 2 inches tall. "What's your name?" "Nora Hayes." "Well, Nora Hayes, you picked the wrong room to crash in." He moved toward the nightstand and grabbed his phone. "I'm calling security." "Wait!" Panic seized her chest. "Please don't. That desk clerk, the one who gave me the key, he was just trying to help. He'll lose his job if you report this, and I have a presentation in—" She checked her phone and felt her stomach drop. "Oh God, in 45 minutes. Please, I'll leave right now. You'll never see me again." "You're damn right about that." He was already dialing. Nora watched her entire future collapse in real time. She'd be escorted out of the building by security, which meant she'd miss her presentation, which meant she'd lose the contract she desperately needed, which meant her design firm would officially die, and she'd have to move back to Ohio and live in her mother's basement, and— The suite door burst open. A woman in her 50s swept in, all elegant silver hair and expensive perfume, followed by 2 younger people, a woman about Nora's age in a designer suit and a man who looked like a slightly softer version of the angry, half-naked guy. "Caleb, darling, I know you said you needed space, but we're family, and we simply can't let you—" The older woman stopped mid-sentence, her eyes landing on Nora. "Oh." Caleb, apparently that was his name, closed his eyes like he was praying for patience. "Mother, not now." "Who's this?" the woman in the suit asked, her tone sharp with curiosity. "Nobody," Caleb said. "A trespasser," Caleb's mother said at the same time, her expression shifting from surprise to something that looked almost like delight. Or what?" the younger man asked. Nora wanted to melt into the floor. 4 pairs of eyes were now staring at her, and she was acutely aware that she looked like she'd been dragged through a hedge backward, while Caleb looked like he'd stepped out of an expensive cologne ad. Caleb's mother moved closer, studying Nora with the intensity of an art appraiser. "You're wearing yesterday's clothes. Your hair is—" She gestured vaguely. "And you're clearly comfortable enough in my son's private suite to sleep here." "I can explain," Nora started. I'm sure you can, dear. The woman's smile was knowing. Caleb, why didn't you tell us you were seeing someone? I'm not. He's not, Nora said at the same time. Oh, please. The suited woman rolled her eyes. You don't have to hide it anymore. We already know. Know what? Caleb's voice had gone dangerously quiet. About the engagement, obviously. His mother clasped her hands together like this was the best news she'd heard all year. The press has been hinting at it for weeks, and I thought you were just being private, but now I see you were waiting for the right moment to tell the family. Nora's brain short-circuited. Engagement? There is no engagement, Caleb ground out. She broke into my suite. I've never seen her before in my life. Broke in? His mother laughed. Darling, she has bedhead and you're in a towel. You can't expect us to believe nothing is going on here. Nothing is going on here. The younger man, Caleb's brother, Nora was starting to piece together, grinned like he was watching his favorite TV show. This is amazing. Caleb Whitmore, commitment phobe extraordinaire, finally settling down. I'm not settling anywhere with anyone, Caleb snapped. Nora needed to leave. She needed to grab her bag and run out of this penthouse before the situation got any worse. But her feet seemed to have forgotten how to work. What's your name, dear? Caleb's mother had moved close enough that Nora could smell her perfume, something floral and expensive. Nora. Nora Hayes. Hayes. The woman tested the name like she was sampling wine. Any relation to the Connecticut Hayes family? I'm from Ohio. Oh. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. How quaint. The suited woman, sister, Nora guessed, stepped forward. Let me get this straight. You're not from money. You somehow ended up in Caleb's private suite, and we're supposed to believe this is all innocent? It is innocent. Nora's voice came out louder than she intended. I didn't know this was his suite. The hotel was booked, and a clerk gave me a key card to a room that was supposed to be empty, and I was so exhausted I just fell asleep. That's it. That's the whole story. That's the worst cover story I've ever heard, the sister said, because it's not a cover story. It's the truth. Enough! Caleb's voice cut through the chaos. Everyone out. Now. But darling, his mother started. Out! The family exchanged glances, some silent communication passing between them that Nora couldn't decipher. Finally, the brother shrugged. Fine. But we're talking about this later. He paused at the door. Nice to meet you, Nora from Ohio. I'm Marcus, by the way, and I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot more of you. They filed out, leaving Nora and Caleb alone in a silence so thick she could barely breathe. Caleb turned to face her, and the anger in his expression had been replaced by something worse. Cold, calculating assessment. How much? He asked. How much what? How much do you want to keep quiet about this? Nora's mouth fell open. Are you seriously trying to bribe me right now? Everyone has a price. I don't want your money. Her voice cracked with frustration. I want to leave and pretend this never happened and somehow salvage what's left of my morning. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door, moving fast before she could do something stupid like cry in front of this arrogant, towel-wearing asshole who thought she was some kind of gold digger. Wait! She didn't wait. She was already in the hallway, dragging her squeaking suitcase toward the elevator. Nora, wait! He'd followed her, still in the towel. In the hallway of one of Manhattan's most exclusive hotels, Caleb Whitmore was chasing her in a towel. The absurdity of it all almost made her laugh. What? She spun around. What could you possibly want now? You've already accused me of breaking and entering, implied I'm a prostitute, and tried to pay me off. What's left? Want to have me arrested? My family thinks we're engaged. That's not my problem. It will be when they leak it to the press. He ran a hand through his damp hair. My mother has connections to every major gossip column in the city. By noon, your face will be on page 6. Nora's blood ran cold. You're joking. I wish I was. He looked almost as miserable as she felt. The Whitmore family doesn't do anything quietly, and my mother has been trying to marry me off for years. She'll see this as proof that I've finally found someone. Then tell her the truth. I tried. She doesn't believe me. He paused. She doesn't want to believe me. They stood there in the hallway, staring at each other like two people who'd just realized they were standing at the edge of a cliff. I have a presentation, Nora said finally, in 30 minutes at the Meridian building. If I'm late, I lose everything. Caleb's expression shifted slightly. What kind of presentation? Interior design pitch. I'm trying to land a contract with Harlow Developments. It's my last shot at keeping my business alive. Something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe, or calculation. Harlow Developments. They're building that new boutique hotel in Brooklyn. How did you... I know Richard Harlow. We went to Princeton together. He was quiet for a moment, thinking. What if I could help you? Nora laughed, bitter and sharp. Why would you help me? Because I need your help too. With what? Caleb looked back at his suite door, then at Nora, and she saw something in his eyes she hadn't expected. Desperation. My family is relentless. If they think I'm engaged, they'll want proof. They'll want to meet you, get to know you, plan a wedding. It'll be a nightmare. So tell them no. You don't understand what my family is like. They don't take no for an answer. But if you play along, just for a few days, just until I can find a way to convince them this was all a misunderstanding, I'll make sure you get that Harlow contract. Nora stared at him. You're insane. Probably, but I'm also serious. He met her eyes. 1 week. You pretend to be my fiancé for 1 week, and I'll personally recommend you to Richard. He trusts my judgment on design. If I tell him you're talented, he'll listen. I don't need your charity. It's not charity, it's a business arrangement. He stepped closer, and Nora caught the scent of expensive soap. We both have problems. We can solve them together, or we can let my mother destroy both our lives by lunchtime. Your choice. Nora's phone buzzed. A reminder. Harlow presentation. 30 minutes. She thought about her empty bank account. Her overdue rent. The loan she'd taken out to keep her business afloat that was now suffocating her. The presentation she'd poured her heart into that might not even matter if she walked in there looking like she'd slept in an airport terminal. She thought about her ex-boyfriend telling her she'd never make it, her former business partner who'd bailed when things got tough, everyone who'd ever looked at her like she was foolish for dreaming too big. 1 week, she heard herself say. 1 week, Caleb confirmed, and you get me that contract. I'll do everything I can. It was a terrible idea. Nora knew it was a terrible idea, but terrible ideas were kind of her specialty at this point. Fine. She stuck out her hand. But we need ground rules. Caleb looked at her outstretched hand, then took it. His grip was firm and warm. Agreed. But first, you need to make that presentation. He checked his watch. And you're running out of time. 20 minutes later, Nora was standing in a different hotel room, this one an actual normal room on the 14th floor, trying to make herself presentable with the limited resources in her bag. Caleb had made one phone call, and suddenly she had access to a shower, clean towels, and a room service cart with coffee strong enough to restart her heart. He'd also sent up something else, a garment bag containing a suit that fit her perfectly. She'd stared at it for a full minute before texting him. How did you know my size? His response came immediately. I have 3 sisters and a very observant mother. I've learned to estimate. The suit was beautiful, charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes, tailored in a way that made her look professional and confident instead of desperate and drowning. Nora had no idea what it cost, but she was pretty sure it was more than her rent. She paired it with her own jewelry, a simple necklace her grandmother had given her, and the heels she'd packed that only hurt a little bit. Her hair was still damp, but she managed to twist it into something that looked intentional. Makeup from her travel bag covered the worst of the dark circles. When she looked in the mirror, she saw someone who belonged in a Harlow boardroom. Her phone buzzed. Car is waiting downstairs. Driver knows where to take you. Good luck. Nora grabbed her portfolio and headed for the elevator, her heart hammering. The car was a sleek black sedan, and the driver treated her like she was actually important. The ride to the Meridian building took 12 minutes, and Nora spent every second reviewing her pitch in her head. She'd based her design proposal on the idea that hotels should feel like homes, not museums. Warm colors, comfortable furniture, spaces that invited people to stay instead of just pass through. It was personal for her. She'd grown up in a house that never quite felt stable, and she'd spent her career trying to create spaces where people could feel safe. The Harlow Developments lobby was all glass and steel, aggressively modern in a way that made Nora's aesthetic sensibilities itch. She announced herself at the front desk, and an assistant led her to a conference room on the 20th floor. Richard Harlow was exactly what she'd expected. Mid-50s, expensive suit, the kind of handshake that felt like a test. Two other people sat at the table. A woman in her 30s who introduced herself as the project manager, and a younger man who didn't bother introducing himself at all. Ms. Hayes. Harlow's smile was polite but distant. We've been looking forward to your presentation, though I have to admit we've already seen proposals from some very established firms. Translation: why should we waste our time with you? Nora set up her portfolio on the table, her hands steady despite the nerves eating her alive. I appreciate the opportunity, she said. I know I'm competing against bigger names with bigger budgets, but I think that's exactly why you should consider what I'm offering. She launched into her pitch, walking them through her vision for the Brooklyn Hotel. She'd created 3 different design concepts, each one focused on making guests feel like they belonged instead of just tolerated. She talked about the psychology of color, the importance of natural light, the way furniture arrangement could make a space feel expansive or intimate. She was good at this part. This was the part where she forgot to be nervous, where her passion for the work drowned out everything else. Harlow listened, his expression unreadable. The project manager took notes. The younger man looked bored. When Nora finished, there was a beat of silence that felt like it lasted a year. Interesting, Harlow said finally. Very residential. That's the point, Nora replied. Hotels are temporary, but they don't have to feel that way. People remember how a place made them feel, not just how it looked. And you think you can execute this vision on our timeline and budget? I know I can. Harlow exchanged glances with the project manager. We'll need to discuss this internally. We have 2 other presentations this afternoon, and we're hoping to make a decision by end of week. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no. Nora packed up her materials, shook hands, and walked out of that conference room with her head high and her knees shaking. She made it to the elevator before pulling out her phone. The screen was full of notifications, messages from numbers she didn't recognize, emails with subject lines like, Whitmore engagement? And who is Nora Hayes? 3 missed calls from her mother. A text from her former business partner that just said, WTF is happening. With trembling fingers, Nora opened her browser and searched her own name. The results made her stomach drop. Caleb Whitmore's mystery woman. Who is Nora Hayes? Whitmore Hotel Air spotted with unidentified woman in private suite. Sources confirm. Caleb Whitmore engaged to unknown designer. There were photos. Someone had caught them in the hallway. Caleb in his towel, Nora in her wrinkled clothes, standing close enough that it looked intimate instead of confrontational. Another photo showed her getting into the car he'd sent, looking polished and sophisticated in the suit he'd provided. The narrative was already written. Mysterious woman, secret relationship, whirlwind engagement. Her phone rang. Caleb. I'm guessing you've seen the news, he said without preamble. How did they? Hotel staff. Probably someone who saw us in the hallway and sold the story. He sounded more resigned than angry. I tried to contain it, but once my mother started making calls, Nora leaned against the elevator wall, closing her eyes. This is a nightmare. It's manageable, but we need to talk in person. I just want to go home and hide under my blankets for the next decade. I'll send a car. I can take the subway like a normal person. Nora. His voice softened slightly. You're about to become the most talked about woman in Manhattan. The subway is not an option anymore. He was right, and she hated it. The car picked her up outside the Meridian building, and Nora spent the ride back to the Whitmore Grand scrolling through increasingly unhinged speculation about her identity. One gossip blog had already dug up her LinkedIn profile and was analyzing her education and work history like she was a political candidate. Another had found her college Facebook photos and was making cruel jokes about her freshman year haircut. This was insane. This was completely, utterly insane. Caleb met her in a private dining room on the hotel's top floor, thankfully fully clothed this time in dark jeans and a white button-down that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. He'd ordered lunch, though Nora's stomach was too twisted to consider eating. I'm sorry, he said as soon as she walked in. I didn't think it would blow up this fast. Your mother works fast. She's had a lot of practice. He pulled out a chair for her. Sit, please. We need to figure this out. Nora sat, more because her legs were giving out than because she wanted to cooperate. There's nothing to figure out. We tell the truth. We explain it was all a misunderstanding. And how do you think that will sound? Sorry, everyone. The woman in my private suite at 7 in the morning was actually a complete stranger who broke in by accident. I didn't break in. The press won't care about the details. They'll just hear stranger in billionaire's bedroom and run with it. He poured her a glass of water. Right now the narrative is romantic, secret engagement, mysterious woman, love story. If we deny it, the narrative becomes sordid. One-night stand, gold digger, security breach. Nora took a long drink of water, trying to calm the panic rising in her chest. So what are you suggesting? We stick to the plan. 1 week of pretending to be engaged. By then, the initial frenzy will have died down. We can announce we realized we rushed into things and decided to take a step back. Mutual decision, still friends, respect each other's privacy. And you think people will just accept that? They'll move on to the next scandal. They always do. He leaned forward, his expression serious. But if we try to deny it now while everyone is watching, it'll only make things worse. The press will dig into your life, into mine, looking for the real story. Nora thought about the presentation she'd just given, how she'd felt confident and professional for the first time in months. If the press started digging, they'd find her failed business, her debt, her eviction notice from 2 months ago that she'd barely avoided. They'd paint her as exactly what Caleb's family probably already thought she was, a nobody trying to claw her way into money. 1 week, she said quietly. 1 week, Caleb confirmed. What do I have to do? He pulled out his phone and showed her his calendar. Family dinner tomorrow night. My mother will want to formally welcome you. Then there's a charity gala on Thursday. Black tie, lots of press, a few casual family gatherings over the weekend. Nora's head spun. I don't have clothes for any of that. I'll take care of it. I can't let you... Nora, he cut her off gently. You're doing me a massive favor. The least I can do is make sure you have the right wardrobe. Besides, my family will expect my fiancé to look a certain way. The word fiancé made her skin crawl. This was so far beyond anything she'd ever imagined happening to her. What about the contract? She asked. Harlow Developments. I'll call Richard this afternoon. I can't guarantee he'll choose your proposal, but I can make sure he gives it serious consideration. It was more than she'd had this morning, more than she'd had in months, if she was being honest. Okay. She took a deep breath. What's our story? How did we meet? How long have we been dating? When did you propose? Caleb smiled slightly, the first real smile she'd seen from him. Good questions. Let's figure that out. They spent the next hour building a fake relationship, crafting lies that would hold up under scrutiny. They'd met 3 months ago at a design conference. Nora had been presenting, and Caleb had been impressed by her work. They'd started talking, discovered shared interests in architecture and art. The relationship had been private because they both valued their independence. The proposal had happened last weekend during a quiet dinner at an Italian restaurant neither of them had actually been to. Nora repeated the story until she could recite it without thinking, until it almost started to feel real. What about your family? Caleb asked. They'll probably be contacted by reporters. Nora's chest tightened. My mom lives in Ohio. She doesn't exactly... We're not close. Any siblings? Only child. My dad died when I was 12. It's just been me and my mom, and we don't really talk much anymore. She saw something shift in Caleb's expression. Sympathy, maybe, or understanding. My family is the opposite, he said. Too many people, too many opinions, too much involvement in every aspect of my life. My mother thinks she's being helpful. My siblings think everything is a joke, and my father... He stopped. My father built this empire from nothing, and he expects all of us to maintain it perfectly. Is he going to be at this dinner tomorrow? No, he's in Singapore on business, which is probably good. He's even harder to convince than my mother. They sat in silence for a moment, two strangers who'd accidentally tangled their lives together in the most absurd way possible. I have a son, Caleb said suddenly. Nora blinked. What? Max. He's 4. His mother died 2 years ago. Cancer. It's just been the two of us since then, with help from nannies and my family, but he's the most important thing in my life. I didn't know. I'm sorry. It wasn't public. We kept it quiet, for his sake. Caleb's expression softened in a way that made him look younger, more vulnerable. He'll be at the family dinner. I wanted you to know before you met him. Nora felt something crack in her chest. This wasn't just some rich guy trying to avoid his pushy family. This was a single father trying to protect his kid. "What do I call you?" she asked. "In public, I mean." "Caleb is fine." "And you call me Nora." "Nora." He tested it, like he was trying it on. "It suits you." Her phone buzzed. An email notification. She glanced at the screen and felt her heart stop. It was from Richard Harlow's office. With shaking hands, she opened it. "Dear Ms. Hayes, thank you for your presentation this morning. After discussing your proposal with our team, we've decided to move forward with a second meeting next week. We'd like to discuss budget specifications and timeline in more detail. Please confirm your availability. Best regards, Richard Harlow." Nora read it 3 times to make sure she wasn't hallucinating. "Good news?" Caleb asked. "They want a second meeting." She looked up at him, something like hope flickering in her chest. "They actually want a second meeting." "Of course they do. Your proposal was probably the best thing they saw all day." "You haven't even seen my proposal. I don't need to. You care about what you do. That comes through in the work." He stood, extending his hand. "Deal? 1 week of being engaged and then we both go back to our regular lives?" Nora took his hand. His grip was steady, confident. "Deal." She had no idea what she was agreeing to, no idea how badly this could all blow up in her face. But for the first time in a long time, Nora Hayes felt like maybe, just maybe, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Even if where she was supposed to be was fake engaged to a billionaire she'd met 12 hours ago. The universe had a sick sense of humor, but maybe this time the joke was actually in her favor. The stylist arrived at Nora's apartment the next morning with enough garment bags to outfit a small army. Nora stood in her cramped living room, really more of a studio with delusions of grandeur, and watched 3 impeccably dressed women transform her space into a makeshift boutique. Racks of clothes appeared, shoeboxes stacked up against her thrift store coffee table, a makeup case that looked like it cost more than her rent. "Mr. Whitmore sent us," the lead stylist said, a sharp-featured woman named Vivian, who spoke with the clipped efficiency of someone whose time was very expensive. "We have the family dinner tonight, the gala Thursday, and several casual options for the weekend events." "This is too much," Nora said. Vivian gave her a look that suggested she'd heard that before and didn't care. Mr. Whitmore was very specific about his requirements. "You need to look like you belong." The words stung more than they should have. Nora glanced around her apartment. The water stain on the ceiling she'd been ignoring for months. The kitchen that barely qualified as a kitchenette. The second-hand furniture she'd convinced herself was vintage instead of just old. She didn't belong in Caleb's world. Everyone could see it. "Let's start with tonight," Vivian continued, pulling out a dress that made Nora's breath catch. It was deep emerald green, elegant without being showy, with a neckline that suggested sophistication rather than trying too hard. The Whitmore family dinners are formal, but not black tie. This strikes the right balance. Nora touched the fabric. Silk. Real silk. Not the polyester imitation she usually bought. "How much does this cost?" "That's not your concern. It is if I'm supposed to wear it." Vivian's expression softened slightly. "Mr. Whitmore has an account with us. Everything has been handled. Your job is to wear it well." The next 2 hours were a blur of trying on clothes, being measured, having her hair and makeup done by women who treated her face like a canvas. Nora sat still and let them work, feeling less like a person and more like a doll being prepared for display. Her phone buzzed constantly. More press notifications. Her mother had finally gotten through, leaving a voicemail that Nora was too scared to listen to. Her former business partner sent a text that just said, "Call me, now." She ignored all of it. When Vivian and her team finally left, Nora stood in front of her bathroom mirror and barely recognized herself. The woman staring back looked polished, put together, like someone who might actually belong at a billionaire's family dinner. The illusion was perfect. Too bad it was just that, an illusion. Her phone rang. Caleb. "The car will be there at 6:30, he said. "We're expected at 7. I'm going to throw up. Please don't. That dress probably costs more than most people's cars." "Not helping," she heard him sigh. "You'll be fine. Just follow my lead, smile when appropriate, And don't let my mother intimidate you. Your mother terrifies me. She terrifies everyone. That's her superpower. A pause. Nora, if this is too much, it's too late for that. She looked at herself in the mirror again. I agreed to this. I'm not backing out now. Good. Because I already told Max he was meeting someone special tonight. Nora's stomach flipped. You told him about me? I told him I have a friend coming to dinner. He's 4. He thinks everyone is special. Caleb's voice softened. He's excited to meet you. That somehow made it worse. Lying to Caleb's pushy family was one thing. Lying to a 4-year-old who'd lost his mother was something else entirely. But she'd made a deal. And Nora Hayes didn't break her promises, even when they were based on complete fabrications. The car arrived exactly at 6:30. Nora grabbed her purse, a loan from Vivian's collection, because her usual canvas tote bag apparently wasn't suitable, and headed downstairs. The driver was the same one from yesterday. A quiet man in his 50s who treated her with the kind of respect usually reserved for people who actually mattered. Miss Hayes, he said, opening the door. You look lovely this evening. Thank you. She slid into the back seat, trying not to wrinkle the dress. The drive to the Whitmore estate took 40 minutes, heading north out of Manhattan into Westchester County. Nora watched the city give way to suburbs, then to genuine countryside. Rolling hills, old trees, properties that probably had names instead of just addresses. When they turned onto a private drive, Nora's heart started hammering. The house, calling it a house felt like calling the ocean a puddle, sprawled across the landscape like something out of a period drama. Stone facade, actual turrets, windows that probably numbered in the hundreds, gardens that looked professionally maintained, a fountain in the circular driveway that featured sculptures of horses. Holy shit, Nora whispered. The driver caught her eye in the rearview mirror and smiled slightly. Caleb was waiting at the entrance, wearing a dark suit that made him look even more intimidating than usual. But when he saw her get out of the car, something in his expression shifted. You look beautiful, he said. Vivian's handiwork. I don't think that's giving yourself enough credit. He offered his arm. Ready? Absolutely not. Perfect. Neither am I. They walked up the steps together, and Nora tried not to think about the fact that she was about to have dinner with people who probably had more money in their couch cushions than she'd made in her entire life. The front door opened before they reached it. A woman in her 30s stood there, not a maid, Nora realized, but someone who clearly belonged to the family. She had Caleb's dark eyes but softer features, and she was holding the hand of a small boy with messy brown hair and a gap-toothed smile. You must be Nora, the woman said warmly. I'm Elaine, the reasonable sister, and this is Max. The little boy looked up at Nora with the kind of open curiosity only children possessed. Are you my daddy's friend? Nora's throat tightened. I am. Do you like dinosaurs? Yes? Good. I have 17 dinosaurs. I can show you after dinner. Max, Caleb said gently. Let Nora get inside first. They entered a foyer that could have swallowed Nora's entire apartment. Crystal chandelier, marble floors, a staircase that belonged in a movie. Nora concentrated on not tripping in her borrowed heels. Voices drifted from somewhere deeper in the house. Laughter, the clink of glasses, the low hum of conversation among people who'd never had to worry about money. The family is in the drawing room, Elaine said. Fair warning. Mother has already had 2 glasses of wine, which means she's in interrogation mode. Fantastic, Nora muttered. Caleb's hand found the small of her back, warm, steadying. We don't have to stay long. 2 hours maximum. 2 hours? Think of it like a performance. You're playing a role. Nora had never been good at acting. She'd tried out for her high school play once and forgotten all her lines. But she didn't have a choice now. The drawing room, because of course they had a drawing room, was exactly as pretentious as Nora had feared. Expensive furniture arranged in conversation clusters, oil paintings that were probably worth more than most people's houses, windows overlooking gardens that belonged in a magazine. Caleb's mother sat in a high-backed chair like a queen holding court, wearing a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than Nora's car. Marcus, the brother Nora had met yesterday, lounged on a sofa with a drink. The sister in the designer suit, Victoria, Nora had learned from her frantic Googling, stood by the fireplace looking bored. Everyone stopped talking when Nora and Caleb walked in. There she is, Caleb's mother said, standing with the kind of grace that came from decades of practice. Nora, darling, come here and let me look at you properly. Nora approached, acutely aware of every eye on her. The older woman studied her like a painting being authenticated, taking in every detail. Much better than yesterday, she said finally. Proper clothing makes such a difference. Mother, Caleb said, a warning in his tone. I'm simply making an observation. She turned to Nora with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I'm Catherine Whitmore. You may call me Catherine. We'll save Mother for after the wedding. Nora's brain stuttered. Thank you. Sit. Tell us about yourself. Caleb has been frustratingly vague about how you two met. They'd rehearsed this. Nora sat on the sofa, Caleb beside her, close enough that their legs touched. She launched into the story they'd crafted, the design conference, the shared interest in architecture, the quiet relationship that had grown over 3 months. Catherine listened with the intensity of a prosecutor examining a witness. Marcus looked amused. Victoria looked skeptical. Elaine looked sympathetic. And your family? Catherine asked. What do they do? My mother works in hospital administration in Ohio. My father passed away when I was 12. I'm sorry for your loss. Catherine's expression didn't change. Any siblings? No, just me. Education? I went to Ohio State, majored in interior design. Nora saw Victoria's expression shift slightly. Not quite a sneer, but close. Ohio State wasn't Princeton. It wasn't even close. And your business, Catherine continued. Caleb mentioned you have your own design firm. I do. Small projects, mostly residential. I'm trying to break into commercial work. Trying, Victoria repeated. So you haven't actually succeeded yet. Victoria, Caleb said sharply. I'm just asking questions. If she's going to be part of this family, she is part of this family. Caleb cut her off. That's not up for debate. The room went silent. Nora felt the weight of everyone's attention shift, the dynamic changing in some way she didn't fully understand. Max, who'd been sitting quietly with Elaine, slid off the sofa and walked over to Nora. Do you want to see my dinosaurs now? Nora looked at the little boy, this sweet kid who had no idea he was in the middle of a performance, and felt her heart crack. I would love to, she said softly. Max, dinner is in 20 minutes, Catherine said. I'll bring her back, Max insisted, grabbing Nora's hand with complete confidence that she would follow. Nora glanced at Caleb, who nodded. She let Max lead her out of the drawing room, grateful for the escape. They went upstairs to a bedroom that was bigger than Nora's entire apartment. Toys covered every surface, not just dinosaurs, but trucks, building blocks, stuffed animals, books stacked in precarious towers. It looked like a normal kid's room, despite being inside a mansion. Max pulled out a plastic bin and started arranging his dinosaur collection on the floor with serious concentration. This is a T-Rex. He's the strongest. And this is a Triceratops. She's my favorite because she has 3 horns. Nora sat on the floor in her expensive dress, not caring if she wrinkled it. She's beautiful. My mommy gave her to me, Max said quietly, before she went to heaven. Nora's throat closed up. Your daddy told me about your mommy. I bet she was wonderful. She was the best. Max made the Triceratops walk across the carpet. Daddy says I look like her, but I have his nose. You have a great nose, Max giggled. Then he looked up at Nora with those serious dark eyes. Are you going to be my new mommy? The question hit Nora like a physical blow. She opened her mouth, closed it, had no idea what to say. Max, because if you are, that's okay. Daddy said he would never replace Mommy, but maybe you could just be an extra person who loves me. Nora felt tears burn behind her eyes. This was wrong. This whole thing was wrong. She was lying to this sweet child who'd already lost so much. I care about your daddy very much, she said carefully, and I think you're pretty amazing too. It wasn't an answer, but it was the best she could do. Max seemed satisfied. He went back to his dinosaurs, creating some elaborate story about them having a party. Nora sat with him, half listening, mostly trying to control the guilt eating through her chest. A knock on the door. Caleb stood there, watching them. Dinner's ready, he said softly. Max jumped up. Can Nora sit next to me? I think that can be arranged. They went downstairs together, Max holding Nora's hand like they'd known each other forever. The dining room was exactly as excessive as Nora had expected. A table that could seat 20 actual candelabras, china that probably cost more than her college tuition. The meal was an exercise in endurance. Catherine asked increasingly pointed questions about Nora's background, her business, her plans for the future. Victoria made subtle digs disguised as compliments. Marcus seemed content to watch the show while drinking wine. Elaine tried to redirect conversations whenever they got too hostile. Caleb sat beside Nora, his hand occasionally finding hers under the table, brief touches that felt like lifelines. "So, when's the wedding?" Marcus asked over dessert, grinning like he was enjoying this. "We haven't set a date," Caleb said. "Why not? If you're engaged, might as well make it official." "We're taking our time," Nora heard herself say. "We want to make sure we do it right." Catherine's eyes sharpened. "How sensible. Though I hope you're not planning one of those drawn-out engagements. A year is more than sufficient." A year. Nora's mind reeled. They were supposed to end this in a week. "We'll see," Caleb said vaguely. After dinner, Catherine insisted on showing Nora the gardens, which meant she wanted to talk to Nora alone. They walked through paths lined with perfectly manicured hedges, the evening air cool against Nora's skin. Catherine didn't speak for a long moment, just walked with the posture of someone who owned everything around her. "You're not what I expected," she said finally. "I'm sorry to disappoint you." "I didn't say you disappointed me. I said you're not what I expected." Catherine stopped by a fountain. Caleb has always been careful. After Rebecca died, he shut down, focused entirely on Max and the business. I'd resigned myself to him never opening up to anyone again. Nora didn't know what to say. The lies felt heavier out here, without Caleb beside her. "Then suddenly you appear," Catherine continued. "No warning, no gradual introduction, just there in his private suite, looking like you'd spent the night. It wasn't—" "I know what my son told me. I also know when he's hiding something." Catherine turned to face her, and Nora saw something unexpected in her expression. Worry. "If you're using him, if this is some scheme to get money or access or whatever it is you actually want, I will destroy you. Not because I'm cruel, but because I will protect my son and my grandson at any cost." The threat was delivered calmly, almost kindly, which somehow made it more terrifying. "I'm not using him," Nora said, and it was the truth. She wasn't using Caleb. They were using each other. "Then what are you doing?" Nora met Catherine's eyes. "I'm trying to survive, same as everyone else." Something flickered across Catherine's face. Respect, maybe, or recognition. "Honesty. How refreshing." She started walking again. "You're not from our world, Nora. That's obvious to anyone paying attention. But maybe that's not a bad thing. This family could use someone who doesn't care about appearances." "I care about appearances," Nora said. "I just can't afford them." Catherine laughed. An actual, genuine laugh. "I think I might like you after all." They walked back to the house in silence, but it felt less hostile than before. Like maybe Nora had passed some kind of test she hadn't known she was taking. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of small talk and subtle family dynamics Nora couldn't fully parse. Max made her promise to visit again soon. Elaine whispered that she'd done well. Victoria remained cold but stopped actively attacking her. When the car finally took them back to Manhattan, Nora felt like she'd run a marathon. Caleb sat beside her in the back seat, quiet for a long moment. "You were amazing," he said finally. "Your mother threatened to destroy me. She threatens everyone. It's her love language. Your son asked if I was going to be his new mother." Caleb's expression cracked. "He did?" I didn't know what to say. "I lied to him, Caleb. He's 4 years old, and I lied right to his face." "You didn't lie. You were kind. That's different." Nora turned to look at him. In the dim light of the car, he looked tired. Human. Not like the polished billionaire from the press photos. "What happens when this week is over?" she asked. "What do we tell Max?" "We'll figure it out." That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. The car pulled up outside Nora's building, shabby and small compared to where they'd just been. She reached for the door handle, then stopped. "Thank you," she said, "for the dress and the stylist and getting me through tonight without having a panic attack." "You don't need to thank me. We are partners in this, remember? Partners. Such a clinical word for whatever this was becoming. Nora got out of the car and walked up to her apartment, aware of Caleb watching until she was inside. She locked the door, kicked off the heels that had been slowly killing her feet, and finally let herself breathe. Her phone was full of messages. Her mother, increasingly frantic. Friends she hadn't heard from in years suddenly very interested in her life. Reporters asking for comments. She ignored all of them and collapsed on her couch. This was only day 2. She had 5 more days of this performance. 5 more days of lying to people who were starting to feel like more than just marks in a con. 5 more days of pretending to be someone she wasn't. The problem was, Nora was starting to forget which parts were pretend and which parts were becoming dangerously real. The next 2 days passed in a haze of preparation and panic. Vivian returned with more clothes, more accessories, more instructions on how to behave at the gala. Nora met with Richard Harlow for the second time and somehow managed to hold her own in negotiations despite her brain being split between her real life and her fake engagement. The contract was close, so close she could taste it, but the gala loomed like a storm on the horizon. Thursday arrived too quickly. Nora spent the entire day being pampered within an inch of her life: hair, makeup, nails, everything attended to by professionals who worked with the efficiency of a pit crew. The dress Vivian had selected was stunning. Midnight blue, floor length, with a neckline that suggested elegance without screaming for attention. When Nora looked at the mirror, she saw a stranger, a beautiful stranger who looked like she belonged in magazines. The car picked her up at 6. Caleb was already inside, wearing a tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped out of a cologne ad. He did a double take when she slid in beside him. "Wow," he said. "Vivian's work again." "No, this is all you." Nora felt heat creep up her neck. "You clean up pretty well yourself." "I try." They rode in silence for a moment. The tension different than before, less hostile, more something else. Something Nora didn't want to examine too closely. "Are you ready for this?" Caleb asked. "Define ready." "Can you smile and make small talk for 3 hours without having a breakdown?" "Probably not." "Perfect. You'll fit right in." The gala was at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, because of course it was. Red carpet, photographers, actual celebrities mixing with New York's elite. Nora watched through the car window as they pulled up, her stomach churning. "We don't have to do this," Caleb said quietly. "I can have the driver take us somewhere else." And waste Vivian's masterpiece? Absolutely not. She was joking, but barely. The truth was, backing out now would make everything worse. They'd committed to this story. They had to see it through. Caleb got out first, then offered his hand to help her out of the car. Nora took it, and suddenly they were in front of cameras, flashbulbs exploding like fireworks. "Caleb, over here! Who's your date?" "Nora, look this way." She'd seen this in movies, but nothing prepared her for the reality. The noise, the lights, the way everyone was shouting at once. Caleb's arm around her waist was the only thing keeping her grounded. "Just smile," he murmured. "We're almost through." They walked the red carpet together, stopping for photos, Caleb introducing her to people whose names Nora immediately forgot. She smiled until her face hurt, said, "Nice to meet you," at least 40 times, and tried not to trip in her heels. Inside, the museum had been transformed into something from a fairy tale. String quartet playing in the corner, champagne flowing freely, people in designer gowns and custom tuxedos air-kissing and networking. Nora grabbed a glass of champagne and downed half of it in one go. "Easy," Caleb said, amused. "I need alcohol to survive this. At least pace yourself. We have 3 more hours." A woman in a red dress approached, mid-40s, perfectly styled, with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. "Caleb Whitmore, I was starting to think you'd become a hermit." "Amanda, good to see you." "And this must be the mysterious fiancé everyone's talking about." Amanda turned her attention to Nora with the focus of a laser. "Nora Hayes, right? I've been reading all about you." "Don't believe everything you read," Nora said. "Oh, I don't, but the photos don't lie. You're stunning." Amanda's smile was sharp. "How did you two meet?" Nora launched into their rehearsed story, but Amanda's eyes never left her face, analyzing every word, every expression. "A design conference? How romantic!" Amanda sipped her champagne. "And you're a designer? Interior, right?"
That's right. I might have to hire you. I'm renovating my Hamptons house, and I could use someone with fresh eyes.
It was a test. Nora recognized it immediately. Amanda wanted to see if she was actually good at her job or just a pretty face attached to a billionaire. I'd be happy to discuss it, Nora said smoothly. Though I should warn you, I tend to challenge my clients' assumptions. If you're looking for someone who'll just do whatever you want, I'm not your designer. Amanda laughed, delighted. Oh, I like her. Caleb, where have you been hiding this one?
More people approached, drawn by Caleb's presence and curiosity about Nora. She fielded questions, made conversation, pretended to be comfortable in a world where the champagne cost more than her monthly grocery budget. Caleb stayed close, his hand occasionally touching her back, her arm grounding her. They moved through the room together like dancers who'd practiced this routine for years instead of days. "You're doing great," he whispered during a brief moment alone. "I'm dying inside."
You hide it well. Someone clinked a glass. Time for speeches. The head of the charity droned on about their mission and donors. Nora's attention drifted until Caleb's name was mentioned. And of course, we're grateful for the Whitmore family's continued support. Caleb, would you say a few words? Caleb squeezed Nora's hand once, then walked to the small stage. He looked completely at ease up there, speaking without notes about the charity's work, making people laugh with well-timed jokes. This was his world. He'd been born into it, trained for it. Nora watched him and felt the gulf between them stretch wider than ever. After the speech, dinner was served. Nora found herself seated between Caleb and an older man who introduced himself as a venture capitalist. The conversation turned to business, investments, opportunities. Nora mostly stayed quiet, focusing on not using the wrong fork. But then the venture capitalist turned to her. "So, Nora, Caleb tells me you're in commercial design now. What's your approach?" Nora blinked, surprised. "My approach?" "To design. Your philosophy." She hadn't expected anyone to actually care about her work, but the man seemed genuinely interested, and Nora found herself talking about how spaces should serve people instead of just impressing them, about the psychology of color and light, about creating environments that felt like home even in commercial settings. The venture capitalist listened, nodded, asked thoughtful questions. By the end of the conversation, he'd handed her his card. "Call my office. I'm developing a boutique hotel in Soho, and I think you might be exactly what we need." Nora took the card with shaking hands. "Thank you." After he walked away, Caleb leaned close. "See? I told you that you were good at this." "I wasn't doing anything. I was just talking about work." "That's the point. You're passionate about what you do. People respond to that." The evening continued. Dancing, more champagne, endless networking. Nora's feet screamed in her heels, but she kept smiling, kept playing the role. Around midnight, Caleb suggested they slip out early. Nora agreed before he could change his mind. They escaped through a side entrance, avoiding the remaining press. The car was waiting, and Nora collapsed into the back seat with a groan. "I'm never wearing heels again," she declared. "You say that now, but there's another event Saturday. Kill me." Caleb laughed, a real laugh, not the polished chuckle he used at the gala. "You were incredible tonight. I mean it." "I barely said anything." "You didn't have to. You just being there, being yourself, it was enough." He paused. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not making me do this alone." Something in his voice made Nora turn to look at him. In the dim light of the car, he looked vulnerable again. Tired. The mask he wore for the cameras had slipped. "It's not as fun as it looks, is it?" she asked. "The galas, the attention, all of it." "It's exhausting. I do it because I have to, because it's expected, because the family business requires maintaining certain relationships. But I hate it." "Then why do you do it?" "Because Max's future depends on this company staying strong. Because my father built something that employs thousands of people. Because walking away would be selfish." He met her eyes. "But sometimes I think about what it would be like to just stop, to do something different." "Like what?" "I don't know, something that matters, something real." Nora understood that feeling more than she wanted to admit. The weight of expectations, the fear of letting people down, the sense that you were trapped in a life you never actually chose. "What about you?" Caleb asked. "If you could do anything, what would it be?" Nora thought about it. "I'd design spaces for people who actually need them, Not luxury hotels for rich tourists, community centers, shelters, affordable housing, places that make a real difference. Why don't you? Because those projects don't pay enough to keep my business alive. So I chase commercial contracts and hope I can make enough money to eventually do the work I actually care about. They looked at each other for a long moment, two people trapped in lives that didn't quite fit, pretending to be something they weren't. "We're quite a pair," Caleb said softly. "Yeah, we really are." The car pulled up outside Nora's building. She reached for the door, then hesitated. "Caleb? Yeah? After this week? After we end the engagement? Are we just going to pretend we never knew each other?" He was quiet for so long, Nora thought he wasn't going to answer. "I don't know," he said finally. "I haven't thought that far ahead." Nora nodded, got out of the car, and walked up to her apartment without looking back. Inside, she stripped off the dress, washed off the makeup, and stood in her bathroom staring at her reflection. The designer was gone. Just Nora remained, broke, exhausted, and dangerously close to caring about someone she was supposed to be conning. Her phone buzzed, a text from Caleb. "You forgot this." An image appeared, the venture capitalist's business card sitting on the car seat. Another text. "I'll have the driver bring it by tomorrow." And Nora? Tonight wasn't pretend. Not entirely. Nora stared at the message for a long time, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. She didn't text back. Didn't know what to say. Because Caleb was right. Somewhere between the fake story and the real conversations, between the staged photos and the genuine moments, the line between performance and reality had started to blur, and Nora had no idea what to do about it. The business card arrived the next morning with a handwritten note from Caleb. "Don't forget to call him. You earned this one on your own." Nora held the card and the note for a long time, sitting at her kitchen table with cold coffee and the kind of exhaustion that came from sleeping badly. She'd spent half the night replaying Caleb's text, the other half trying to convince herself it didn't mean anything. Tonight wasn't pretend. Not entirely. What the hell was that supposed to mean? Her phone rang, Richard Harlow's office. Nora answered on the second ring, her heart in her throat. "Ms. Hayes, Mr. Harlow would like to move forward with your proposal. We'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss the contract terms." Nora almost dropped the phone. "Yes, absolutely. When?" "Monday afternoon work for you?" "Monday is perfect." She hung up and just sat there, staring at nothing. She'd done it. Actually done it. The contract she'd been chasing for months was finally within reach. And she had no idea how much of it was her talent and how much was Caleb's influence. The thought made her stomach turn. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "This is Elaine, Caleb's sister. Brunch tomorrow at the estate, 11 a.m. It's a family thing, but Mother insists you come. Sorry in advance." Nora typed back. "I'll be there." Another text, this time from Caleb. "You don't have to go if you don't want to. I can make an excuse." Nora stared at the message. Part of her wanted to take the out, to have a day where she wasn't performing. But another part, the part that was getting dangerously comfortable in this role, wanted to see him again. "I'll be there," she replied. The response came immediately. "Thank you." "And Nora, congratulations on Harlow. You did that yourself." She wanted to believe him. Saturday morning arrived with rain that turned Manhattan gray and miserable. Nora dressed in one of the casual outfits Vivian had left. Designer jeans that actually fit, a cream sweater that probably cost more than her winter coat, ankle boots that didn't make her feet scream. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw someone who could almost pass for belonging. Almost. The drive to Westchester felt longer in the rain. Nora watched water streak across the car windows and tried to prepare herself for another round of Whitmore family dynamics. At least this time she knew what to expect. Except she didn't. Not really. When she arrived, the house looked different in daylight. Less intimidating, more like an actual home instead of a museum. Elaine met her at the door, looking relieved. "Thank God you're here. Mother's in rare form today, and Victoria brought her new boyfriend, who's somehow even more insufferable than the last one." "Sounds delightful." "Oh, it's a nightmare. Come on, everyone's in the sunroom." The sunroom was exactly what it sounded like. A glass-enclosed space overlooking the gardens, filled with plants and comfortable furniture that actually looked used. Catherine presided over a table laden with food that could have fed 20 people. Marcus was sprawled in a chair with a Bloody Mary. Victoria sat with a man in his 40s who wore too much cologne and kept checking his phone, and Caleb was on the floor, building a Lego castle with Max. He looked up when Nora walked in, and something in his expression softened. "You made it." "Barely. The rain was murder." Max scrambled up and ran over to her. "Nora, you're here. Do you want to help with the castle? It's supposed to have a dragon, but we can't find the dragon." "I would love to help find the dragon." Catherine watched this interaction with an expression Nora couldn't quite read. "Nora, darling, come sit. Have some food. You look thin." "I'm fine, thank you." "Nonsense. Marcus, get her a plate." Marcus rolled his eyes but complied, piling food onto a plate like he was feeding an army. Nora took it and sat beside Caleb on the floor, which seemed to amuse everyone except Victoria. "You're sitting on the floor," Victoria said, "in designer jeans." "They're just jeans." "Those jeans cost $1,800. Nora choked on nothing. "What?" "Vivian doesn't do cheap," Caleb murmured. "Sorry, I should have warned you." Nora looked down at the jeans she'd been treating like normal clothes and felt slightly sick. $1,800. She'd never owned anything that cost that much in her life. "Found it!" Max held up a plastic dragon triumphantly. He was under the couch. The rest of the morning passed in a strange blur of normal and surreal. They built the Lego castle. They ate brunch that included actual caviar, which Nora tried and immediately decided she hated. They played a board game that Max won by cheating in the most obvious way possible, and everyone let him because he was 4 and adorable. Victoria's boyfriend, Preston, apparently, spent most of the time bragging about his hedge fund and looking at Nora like she was a curiosity in a museum. Marcus got progressively drunker and funnier. Catherine watched everything with the sharp attention of someone conducting an experiment. Around 2 in the afternoon, Max started getting cranky. Caleb scooped him up. "Nap time, buddy." "I'm not tired," Max protested, even as he yawned. "Sure you're not. Come on." Caleb carried him out of the room, and Nora suddenly felt exposed without him there as a buffer. "So," Preston said, leaning forward with the confidence of someone who'd never been told to shut up. "Interior design, that's like picking out curtains and stuff?" Nora counted to 5 before responding. "It's about creating functional spaces that serve the people who use them. But yes, sometimes that involves curtains." "Must be nice, having a hobby that makes you feel productive." "It's not a hobby, it's my career." "Right, but I mean, now that you're marrying Caleb, you don't really need to work, do you?" The room went very quiet. Nora felt everyone's attention shift to her, waiting to see how she'd respond. "I work because I like working," she said carefully. "The fact that I'm engaged doesn't change that." "But wouldn't it be easier to just—" "Preston," Victoria's voice was sharp. "Drop it." He held up his hands. "I'm just saying, if I had access to Whitmore money, I wouldn't be stressing about some little design business." Marcus laughed, bitter and sharp. "Yeah, because you're already trying to get access to Whitmore money through my sister." "That's not—" "Everyone knows why you're here, Preston. You're about as subtle as a brick." Victoria stood up, her face flushed. "We're leaving." "Vicky, come on, we're leaving, now." They left in a storm of tension, Preston still trying to explain himself. As soon as they were gone, Marcus raised his glass. "And that's why I stay single. Dating is a nightmare." "You stay single because you have commitment issues," Elaine said. "Same thing." Catherine sighed, setting down her teacup with deliberate precision. "Nora, dear, would you join me for a walk? I'd like to discuss something with you privately." It wasn't a request. They put on coats and walked through the gardens, despite the rain, sharing an umbrella that Catherine wielded like a weapon. They walked in silence for several minutes, just the sound of rain on fabric and Nora's heart hammering in her chest. "I had you investigated," Catherine said finally. Nora stumbled. "What? Please. You appear out of nowhere, claiming to be engaged to my son, and you thought I wouldn't look into your background." Catherine kept walking, not even glancing at Nora. "I know about your business debts, the eviction notice you barely avoided, your mother who you haven't spoken to in 3 years, the ex-boyfriend who embezzled from your company and left you holding the bag." Nora felt like she'd been punched. "You had no right." "I had every right. You're involved with my son and my grandson. I will protect them by any means necessary." Catherine stopped, turning to face her. What I found was interesting. You're broke, desperate, barely keeping your head above water. The perfect target for someone looking to marry into money. I'm not finished. Catherine's voice could cut glass. What I also found was that, despite everything, you've never once tried to exploit your situation. You haven't sold your story to the tabloids, even though they'd pay handsomely. You haven't posted on social media looking for attention. You haven't asked Caleb for money, even though you clearly need it. And yesterday, when you had the chance to use his name to impress that venture capitalist, you didn't. You talked about your work like it mattered, not like it was a ticket to something bigger. Nora didn't know what to say. So either you're playing a very long game, Catherine continued, or you're genuinely not interested in the Whitmore fortune, which makes you either very smart or very stupid, and I haven't decided which yet. I don't want Caleb's money, Nora said quietly. I never did. Then what do you want? The question hung in the rain-soaked air. Nora thought about all the lies she'd told, all the performances she'd given. But standing here, being confronted with the truth of who she actually was, the lies felt impossible to maintain. I want to build something that matters, she said. I want to prove that I'm not a failure. I want... She stopped, surprised by the emotion in her throat. I want to stop feeling like I'm drowning. Catherine studied her for a long moment. You remind me of myself at your age. Hungry, determined, terrified of not being enough. You? Why do you think I married Caleb's father? I came from nothing, Nora. I worked my way up from a secretary position to CFO of a company I didn't even own. I married Richard Whitmore because he saw something in me beyond my background, and I saw something in him beyond his money. We built an empire together. Nora had never considered that Catherine might have her own story, her own struggles. My son cares about you, Catherine said. I see it in the way he looks at you, the way he stays close when you're in a room full of people, the way he defended you to Victoria without hesitation. She paused. I also see the way you look at him when you think no one's watching. Nora's chest tightened. Don't lie to me. I'm giving you a chance to be honest. The rain fell harder. Nora pulled the coat tighter around herself. I don't know what this is, she admitted. It started as something else, but now I don't know what it is anymore. That's the most honest thing you've said since we met. Catherine started walking again, and Nora followed. Let me give you some advice. This family will eat you alive if you let them. They'll judge you, test you, try to find your breaking point. But if you can survive that, if you can be yourself despite all of it, they'll respect you, maybe even accept you. And if I can't, then you'll end up like Preston, trying to be something you're not, and failing miserably at it. They walked back to the house in silence. When they reached the door, Catherine touched Nora's arm. One more thing. Max already loves you. I see it in how he lights up when you arrive. So whatever this is between you and Caleb, be careful. Because if you break that little boy's heart, I won't need to destroy you. You'll destroy yourself. The words hit harder than any threat. Inside, Caleb was coming down the stairs. He took one look at Nora's face and his expression shifted. What happened? Just a chat, Catherine said smoothly. Girl talk. I'm sure you wouldn't understand. She swept past them into the drawing room, leaving Nora and Caleb alone in the foyer. Are you okay? Caleb asked. Your mother had me investigated. He closed his eyes. Of course she did. I'm sorry. She knows everything. The debts, the eviction notice, all of it. And she said I remind her of herself. Nora laughed, a bit hysterical. I don't know what's real anymore. This whole thing has gotten so complicated. Caleb stepped closer, his voice low. Do you want out? We can end this right now. I'll handle my family. And what about Max? What do we tell him? I don't know. But I won't keep you trapped in something that's making you miserable. Nora looked up at him, at this man who'd been a stranger less than a week ago and was now something else entirely. Something she didn't have a name for. I'm not miserable, she said quietly. No? Terrified, confused, completely out of my depth, but not miserable. Something passed between them, an understanding, an acknowledgement of whatever this was becoming. Nora? Max's voice interrupted from upstairs. Daddy, I can't find Mr. Whiskers. Caleb looked torn between staying and going. Nora made the choice for him. Go, I'll wait here." He went, and Nora stood in the enormous foyer of the Whitmore estate, surrounded by wealth she'd never have, living a lie that was starting to feel more real than her actual life. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number with a Manhattan area code. "This is Amanda Chen from the gala. I wasn't joking about the Hamptons renovation. Call me when you have a chance to discuss." Another opportunity. Another door opening because of Caleb's world, not her own merit. Except that wasn't fair, was it? She'd earned Amanda's interest by being honest about her approach to design. The venture capitalist's card sat in her purse because she'd spoken passionately about her work. Even Richard Harlow had chosen her proposal before Caleb had a chance to make any calls on her behalf. Maybe she was better at this than she thought. Maybe she'd been so busy drowning that she'd forgotten she knew how to swim. Caleb came back downstairs carrying a stuffed cat. Crisis averted. Mr. Whiskers was in the blanket fort. Important work. The most important. He looked at her carefully. "Do you want to stay for dinner? Mother will insist, but I can get us out of it if you need to leave." Nora thought about her empty apartment, the weekend stretching ahead with nothing but her own thoughts for company. She thought about Max, who'd already asked twice when she was coming back. She thought about this strange family that was starting to feel less strange and more like somewhere she could maybe, possibly, belong. "I'll stay," she said. Relief crossed Caleb's face. "Good. Because I need backup against Marcus when he gets drunk enough to start telling embarrassing stories about my college years." Dinner was chaotic in a way Nora was starting to recognize as normal for the Whitmores. Max insisted on sitting between Nora and Caleb, narrating every bite of food like he was a food critic. Marcus did indeed start telling embarrassing stories, including one about Caleb getting stuck in a tree at his own graduation party. Elaine talked about her charity work with genuine passion. Catherine presided over it all with the satisfied expression of someone watching a play they'd directed. Nora found herself laughing more than she'd laughed in months. Real laughter, not the polite kind she used at business meetings. After dinner, while Catherine and Elaine were handling something in the kitchen, Marcus cornered Nora on the terrace. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Do I have a choice?" "Not really." He leaned against the railing, studying her. "Are you actually in love with my brother?" Nora's heart stopped. I'm not trying to catch you in a lie. I'm genuinely asking." Marcus's usual humor was gone, replaced by something serious. "Caleb hasn't let anyone get close since Rebecca died. Not romantically, barely even platonically. He turned himself into this closed-off workaholic who only came alive around Max. And then suddenly you appear, and he's different." "Different how?" "Lighter. Like he's remembering how to be a person instead of just a father and a CEO." Marcus paused. "I don't care how you two met or what the real story is. What I care about is that my brother is happy for the first time in years. So I'm asking, are you going to break his heart?" Nora felt the weight of the question settle over her. "I don't want to hurt him." "That's not the same as saying you won't." "I know." They stood in silence for a moment, the evening air cool against Nora's skin. "For what it's worth," Marcus said, "I like you. You're not impressed by the money, you're not fake, and you can keep up with this family's particular brand of insanity. That's rare." "Thanks, I think. But if you do hurt him, I'll make your life hell, just so we're clear." "Crystal clear." Marcus grinned, the humor back in his expression. Good talk. The evening wound down around 10. Max had already fallen asleep on the couch, and Caleb carried him up to bed. Nora said her goodbyes to the family, enduring Catherine's air kisses and Elaine's warm hug and Marcus's knowing look. Caleb walked her to the car, his hands shoved in his pockets. "Thank you for staying," he said. "I know it's a lot." "Your family is intense." "That's a polite way of putting it." Nora hesitated, then decided to just say it. "Your mother told me Max loves me. Is that true?" Caleb was quiet for a moment. "Yeah. He talks about you constantly, asks when you're coming back, shows his dinosaurs to empty rooms, and says he's practicing for when Nora visits." The information made Nora's chest ache. "Caleb, what are we doing? We said 1 week. It's been almost a week, and we're in deeper than ever." "I know." "So what happens now?" He looked at her, and in the dim light from the house, she could see the conflict in his expression. "What do you want to happen?" "I don't know. This was supposed to be fake. And now? Now it feels real. Or parts of it do, and that terrifies me." Caleb stepped closer, close enough that Nora could feel the warmth of him. You terrify me too. You show up in my life completely by accident, and suddenly everything is different. I can't stop thinking about you. I look forward to seeing you. I care about what you think, what you want, whether you're okay. Caleb, I'm not asking you for anything. I just wanted you to know. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, the gesture so gentle it made Nora want to cry. Whatever this is, whatever it becomes, you get to decide. Not me, not my family, not the press. You. Nora looked up at him, at this man who'd started as an angry stranger in a towel and had somehow become someone she couldn't imagine not knowing. I need time, she said, to figure out what I want, what this is. Take all the time you need. He kissed her forehead, chaste, sweet, nothing like the kiss people would expect from an engaged couple. But it felt more intimate than anything Nora had experienced in years. She got in the car, and Caleb watched until they pulled away. The drive back to Manhattan gave Nora too much time to think. About Catherine's warning, about Marcus's question, about the way Caleb looked at her like she mattered, about the fact that in less than a week, she'd gone from broke and desperate to fake engaged to a billionaire, with actual job opportunities and a little boy who loved her, and a family that was starting to accept her despite everything. Her phone rang. Her mother. Nora had been avoiding this call for days. She answered. Nora Marie Hayes, you have exactly 5 seconds to explain to me what the hell is going on before I drive to New York and drag you home by your ear. Hi, Mom. Don't hi mom me. I've been seeing your face all over the internet. Engaged to a billionaire? And you didn't think to call your own mother? Nora closed her eyes. It's complicated. Complicated how? Either you're engaged or you're not. I'm engaged. The lie came out automatically. Nora heard her mother's sharp intake of breath. To Caleb Whitmore, the hotel heir. Yes, the man who's worth more than most small countries. I don't know his exact net worth, Mom. How did you even meet someone like that? You can barely afford rent. And there it was. The disappointment, the disbelief, the implication that Nora wasn't good enough for this. We met at a conference, Nora said, reciting the lies she'd told so many times it was starting to feel like truth. We have a lot in common. What could you possibly have in common with a billionaire? Thanks for the vote of confidence. I'm not trying to be cruel, honey. I'm trying to be realistic. People like that don't marry people like us. They just don't. Maybe I'm the exception. Her mother sighed, and Nora heard the worry underneath the harsh words. I just don't want you to get hurt. You've been through enough with Jason and the business and everything else. If this man is using you, he's not using me. If anything, I'm... Nora stopped herself. She couldn't tell her mother the truth. We care about each other. That's all that matters. Does he know about your debt, your history? He knows everything. And he still wants to marry you? The question hurt more than it should have. Apparently so. They talked for a few more minutes, her mother vacillating between concern and cautious excitement. When Nora finally hung up, she felt exhausted all over again. The car pulled up to her building, and Nora trudged upstairs to her apartment. Inside, surrounded by her secondhand furniture and water-stained ceiling, the contrast between her real life and the one she was living with Caleb felt impossible to bridge. She changed into pajamas, made tea she didn't drink, and sat on her couch staring at nothing. Her phone buzzed. Caleb, Max wanted me to tell you goodnight. He says Mr. Whiskers says goodnight too. A photo appeared, Max in his pajamas, holding up the stuffed cat, grinning at the camera. Nora's heart cracked open. She typed back, tell them both goodnight for me. Another message. Are you okay? Just talk to my mother. She thinks I'm not good enough for you. The response came quickly. She's wrong. Is she though? Nora, you're talented, smart, kind, and stronger than you give yourself credit for. Anyone would be lucky to be with you. She stared at the message for a long time. Even a billionaire hotel heir? Especially a billionaire hotel heir. We're generally terrible people. You make me want to be better. Nora didn't know how to respond to that. Didn't know how to handle the warmth spreading through her chest. The dangerous feeling that maybe this could actually be real. Get some sleep, Caleb wrote. Monday's going to be big. The Harlow contract is yours. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because you're brilliant, and Richard Harlow isn't stupid enough to pass on someone brilliant. Nora set her phone down and let herself cry. From exhaustion, from stress, from the overwhelming feeling of being seen by someone who had no reason to see her at all. Tomorrow, she'd figure out what to do about the engagement, about her feelings, about the increasingly complicated reality of her life. Tonight, she'd let herself believe that maybe her mother was wrong. Maybe she was exactly good enough. Monday morning arrived with the kind of sunshine that felt like a taunt. Nora stood in front of her closet, staring at the row of borrowed clothes that now made up half her wardrobe, and felt the weight of what she was about to do. The Harlow contract meeting was at 2. She had 5 hours to prepare, to rehearse, to convince herself she deserved this. Her phone rang. "Caleb." "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Like I'm going to throw up." "That's normal before big meetings." "Is it normal to question whether you actually earned the meeting or just got it because you're fake engaged to someone with connections?" Silence on the other end. Then, "Nora, we need to talk about that." "About what?" "About whether this is still fake." Nora's heart stopped. "Caleb, I know what we agreed. 1 week, then we're done. But it's been a week, and I don't want to be done." He paused, and she could hear the vulnerability in his voice. "Do you?" She sat on her bed, gripping the phone like a lifeline. "I don't know what I want anymore." "That's not a no. It's not a yes either. Can we talk about this? In person, after your meeting? I need to focus on the contract right now. I know, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have." He stopped. "You're going to kill it today. I know you will. And Nora, whatever happens with us, you earned this. Don't ever doubt that." He hung up before she could respond. Nora spent the next 4 hours preparing until she could recite her proposal in her sleep. She dressed in one of Vivian's power suits, did her makeup carefully, tried to look like someone who belonged in a boardroom instead of drowning in debt. The car Caleb sent picked her up at 1:30. She didn't argue about it anymore. Richard Harlow's office was on the 43rd floor of a building in Midtown, all glass and steel, and the kind of minimalist design that screamed money. His assistant led Nora to a conference room where Harlow waited with his project manager and a lawyer. "Ms. Hayes." Harlow stood, shaking her hand. "Good to see you again." They sat, and Nora pulled out her revised proposal. She'd stayed up until 3 in the morning refining it, incorporating feedback from the first meeting, adding details she thought would address their concerns. For the next hour, they went through every aspect of the project: budget, timeline, materials, the design philosophy that would guide every decision. Harlow asked tough questions, and Nora answered them with a confidence she didn't entirely feel but had learned to fake. The project manager took notes. The lawyer looked bored until Nora mentioned sustainable materials, then suddenly perked up with questions about environmental impact and LEED certification. When it was over, Harlow sat back in his chair, studying Nora with an expression she couldn't read. "You've clearly put a lot of thought into this," he said. "This project matters to me. I want to get it right. Even though it's boutique scale, I know designers with your talent usually aim for bigger contracts." Nora met his eyes. "Boutique doesn't mean less important. The guests who stay in your hotel deserve the same level of care as guests in a massive resort. Maybe more because they're choosing intimacy over grandeur. That choice should be honored." Harlow smiled. "You sound like Caleb. He's always going on about the personal touch and hospitality." Nora's stomach tightened. Here it was, the acknowledgement that Caleb's influence had gotten her in the door. "Caleb and I share similar values," she said carefully, "but this proposal is mine. If you're hiring me because of him, I'd rather you didn't." The room went quiet. Harlow's project manager looked shocked. The lawyer stopped taking notes. Harlow leaned forward. "Excuse me? I want this contract more than I've wanted anything in a long time, but I want it because you believe in my work, not because I'm connected to the Whitmore family. If you can't separate those things, then this isn't the right fit." It was possibly the stupidest thing Nora had ever said. She was about to throw away the opportunity she'd been chasing for months because of pride. But she meant it. Harlow was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed, a real genuine laugh. "Caleb warned me you'd say something like that." Nora blinked. "What?" "He called me last week, said I should look at your proposal, that you were talented, but he also said that if you found out he'd called, You'd probably walk away from the whole thing just to prove you didn't need his help. Harlow's expression turned serious. So let me be clear. I'm offering you this contract because your proposal is the best one I've seen. The sustainability focus, the attention to how spaces make people feel, the way you think about flow and functionality, that's what sold me, not your relationship with Caleb. You're offering me the contract? Pending final negotiations with our legal team, yes. Are you interested? Nora's hand shook. Yes, absolutely yes. They spent another 30 minutes going over terms and next steps. By the time Nora left the building, she had a signed letter of intent in her bag and a start date 3 weeks away. She made it to the sidewalk before the reality hit her. She'd done it, actually done it, won a major contract on her own merit. Her phone was already ringing. Caleb. How did it go? I got it. Her voice cracked. I actually got it. I knew you would. Congratulations. Caleb, I said something really stupid in there. What did you say? I told Harlow I didn't want the contract if he was only giving it to me because of you. Caleb laughed, warm and genuine. And he said you warned him I'd do that. I know you, Nora, better than you think. The words settled over her, heavy with meaning. She stood on a Manhattan sidewalk with people rushing past and felt something shift inside her chest. Where are you? She asked. Home? With Max. Why? Can I come over? A pause. Of course. I'll send the car. I'll take the subway. I need to think. The ride to Caleb's building gave Nora time to process everything. The contract, the conversation with Harlow, the realization that Caleb had helped her, but not in the way she'd feared. He'd opened a door, but she'd walked through it herself. Caleb lived in a penthouse in Tribeca, not the hotel suite where they'd first met, but his actual home. Nora had never been there before. The building had a doorman who clearly knew who she was, greeting her by name and directing her to the private elevator. The apartment was nothing like she expected. Instead of the sterile luxury of the hotel or the museum-like quality of the family estate, it was warm, lived in, toys scattered across an expensive rug, children's books stacked on the coffee table, artwork on the walls that looked like it had been chosen for love rather than investment. Caleb opened the door in jeans and a t-shirt, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. Max was visible in the background, building something elaborate with blocks. You came, Caleb said. I said I would. You also said you needed to think. I wasn't sure what conclusion you'd come to. Nora stepped inside and Max looked up, his face lighting up. Nora, you're here! Look at my tower! She walked over to admire the block tower, which was impressively tall and precarious. That's amazing. How many blocks is it? I don't know. I can't count that high yet. Max looked at her seriously. Are you staying for dinner? She glanced at Caleb. You're welcome to stay, he said quietly. Then yes, I'm staying. Max cheered and went back to his tower. Caleb led Nora to the kitchen, which was actually functional despite being high-end. There were sippy cups in the sink and drawings held to the refrigerator with magnets. I'm making pasta, Caleb said. Nothing fancy. Max won't eat anything that's not shaped like dinosaurs anyway. You cook? When the nanny has the night off, yes. I'm not completely useless. Nora sat at the kitchen island, watching him move around the space with easy familiarity. It was such a normal scene, a father making dinner for his son while his fiancée watched, except none of it was supposed to be real. Thank you, she said. For what? For calling Harlow, for believing in my work, for not making it weird. Caleb looked at her over his shoulder. You're talented, Nora. I didn't do anything except tell someone else what I already knew. Still, thank you. They fell into silence, but it was comfortable. Max came running in asking for juice, which Caleb provided along with a snack. The little boy climbed onto the stool next to Nora and started narrating his entire day, something about circle time and a kid named Emma who brought a frog to show and tell. Nora listened, genuinely interested, asking questions that made Max giggle. This felt real in a way nothing else had. No cameras, no performance, just a family being together. Except they weren't a family. Not really. Dinner was chaotic in the best way. Max insisted on sitting between them, spilling juice twice and getting pasta sauce on his shirt. Caleb handled it all with the practiced ease of someone who'd been doing this alone for a while. After dinner, they played a board game that Max won by making up rules. Then it was bath time, and Caleb looked at Nora apologetically. This usually takes a while. You don't have to wait. Can I help? He looked surprised. You want to help with bath time? Why not? I've never bathed a 4-year-old before. Seems like something I should learn. What she didn't say was that she wasn't ready to leave yet. That this apartment, this life, felt more real than anything in her own world. Bath time was an adventure. Max had strong opinions about which toys needed to be in the tub and spent most of the time making up stories about submarine dinosaurs. Nora sat on the bathroom floor, getting splashed, listening to Caleb narrate an elaborate tale about a T-Rex who lived underwater. When Max was finally clean and in pajamas, Caleb carried him to bed. Nora followed, standing in the doorway as Caleb tucked him in. Story time, Max demanded. Which book tonight? The dragon one. And I want Nora to read it. Caleb looked at her, and Nora felt her heart squeeze. She sat on the edge of Max's bed and read the story about a dragon who was afraid of flying, doing different voices for each character. Max giggled at her dragon impression, which sounded more like a broken radiator than anything fierce. By the end of the story, Max's eyes were drooping. Nora? He said sleepily. Yeah, buddy? Are you going to live here now? With me and Daddy? Nora froze. She looked at Caleb, who was leaning against the doorframe with an expression she couldn't read. We'll see, she said gently. For now, I have my own place. But I want you to stay. Max's voice was small, vulnerable. It's lonely when it's just me and Daddy. I like when you're here. Nora felt tears burn her eyes. She kissed Max's forehead. Get some sleep, okay? We'll figure it out. Promise? Promise. Max fell asleep within minutes. Nora and Caleb stood in the hallway outside his room, the weight of that conversation hanging between them. I'm sorry, Caleb said. I didn't know he'd ask that. It's okay. It's not okay. He's getting attached, and when this ends, Nora interrupted, he's going to be hurt. I know. I've been trying not to think about it. They moved to the living room, putting distance between themselves and Max's room. Nora sat on the couch, and Caleb poured them both wine. We need to talk about what this is, he said, sitting beside her. Really talk about it. I know. It's been more than a week. The agreement was 1 week, then we'd end it, but we haven't ended it. We keep going to family events, keep acting like this is real, and the press is eating it up. There are already rumors about wedding dates. Nora took a long drink of wine. What do you want to do? I asked you first. Caleb. He set down his glass and turned to face her. I don't want to end it. There. That's the truth. I don't want to go back to pretending we don't know each other. I don't want to explain to Max why you're not coming around anymore. And I don't want to stop seeing you. Nora's breath caught. This was supposed to be fake. I know what it was supposed to be. I'm telling you what it is now. For me, at least. He reached for her hand. You make me laugh. You call me on my bullshit. You play with my son like he's the most important person in the world. You fit into my life in a way I didn't think anyone could after Rebecca died. I'm not Rebecca. I don't want you to be Rebecca. I want you to be you. His grip on her hand tightened. I'm falling for you, Nora. I've been falling for you since you stood in that hallway in your wrinkled clothes and refused to be intimidated. And I need to know if there's any chance you feel the same way. Nora looked at their joined hands, at this man who'd started as a mark in a con and had become someone she couldn't imagine losing. I'm terrified, she whispered. Of what? Of this? Of you? Of the fact that I'm broke and broken and you're... She gestured around the apartment. This. All of this. Your world, your family, your life. It's so far from mine that I don't even know how to bridge the gap. So we build a bridge together. What if I can't do this? What if I fail? What if you succeed? Caleb cupped her face, making her look at him. You've spent so long expecting things to fall apart that you can't see when they're actually coming together. The contract with Harlow? You earned that. Amanda Chen wanting to hire you? You earned that too. My family liking you despite your background? You earned every bit of their respect. And you? Nora asked. Did I earn you, or is this just proximity and convenience? You think this is convenient? Caleb laughed, but there was no humor in it. Nora, you're the most inconvenient person who's ever entered my life. You make me question everything. You challenge me. You make me want to be better than I am. That's not convenience. That's... He stopped himself, but Nora heard what he didn't say. Say it, she whispered. I'm in love with you. The words hung in the air between them, real and terrifying and impossible to take back.
Nora closed her eyes.
We've known each other for less than 2 weeks.
I know. This is insane. I know that too. Your family is going to think I'm using you. The press is going to tear me apart. My mother is going to have a heart attack. Probably. Nora opened her eyes and found Caleb watching her with an expression so open, so vulnerable, that it broke something inside her chest. I'm falling for you too, she admitted. I've been fighting it because it's stupid and reckless and makes no sense. But I can't stop. Every time I'm with you, every time Max looks at me like I matter, every time your family almost accepts me, I fall a little harder. Caleb kissed her. Not the chaste forehead kiss from before, but a real kiss. Deep and desperate and full of everything they'd been holding back. Nora kissed him back, wrapping her arms around his neck, letting herself fall completely. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Caleb rested his forehead against hers. So where does that leave us? He asked. I don't know. We can't keep calling this fake when it's clearly not. Then let's stop calling it fake. Let's make it real. Nora pulled back to look at him. You want to actually be engaged? For real? Eventually, yes. But for now, I just want to be with you. No pretending, no performance. Just us figuring this out together. It was terrifying and exhilarating and completely insane. But Nora found herself nodding. Okay, but we need ground rules. Like what? Like we tell people the truth. Not the press, not yet. But your family, my mother, they deserve to know the real story. Caleb hesitated. My mother already suspects. She's not stupid. Then let's tell her. Let's tell all of them. The fake engagement becomes a real relationship. We're dating, taking it slow, seeing where it goes. What about Max? Nora thought about the little boy sleeping down the hall, the way he'd asked if she was going to live there, the hope in his voice. We're careful with Max. We don't make promises we can't keep. We let him set the pace for how much I'm in his life. Caleb nodded slowly. I can live with that. They sat together on the couch, Nora's head on Caleb's shoulder, processing the fact that they'd just turned a con into something real. My mother is going to lose her mind, Nora said. My mother is going to throw a party. The press is going to dig even deeper into my background. Let them. There's nothing to hide anymore. Nora turned to look at him. Aren't you worried about what they'll find? The debt, the failed business, my messy history? No. Because none of that defines you. You're rebuilding, you're fighting, you're stronger than anyone I know. If the press wants to judge you for having a past, they can go to hell. She kissed him again, softer this time. When did you get so good at this? At what? Making me believe I'm worth something. You've always been worth something. I'm just helping you see it. They talked for hours after that, curled up together on the couch, mapping out how this could actually work. Caleb would tell his family the truth about how they met, framing it as a misunderstanding that turned into something real. Nora would call her mother and explain that the engagement had been rushed, but was now becoming genuine. They'd continue going to events together, but as an actual couple instead of performing one. And they'd take it slow with Max, making sure he understood that Nora cared about him, but that things were still new. Around midnight, Nora started to leave. Caleb walked her to the door. Stay, he said. I can't. Not with Max here. It's too soon. I meant stay in the guest room. It's late, and I don't want you going home alone. Nora considered it, then nodded. Okay, but I need to leave early tomorrow. I have a meeting with Amanda Chen about the Hamptons project. Look at you, collecting contracts. Don't jinx it. Caleb showed her to the guest room, which was decorated in soft blues and had an ensuite bathroom. He lingered in the doorway. Thank you, he said. For what? For giving this a chance, for not running when you had every reason to. I'm still terrified, Nora admitted. Me too. But I think that means we're doing it right. He kissed her goodnight and left, closing the door behind him. Nora changed into a t-shirt Caleb had given her and climbed into the guest bed, surrounded by luxury she was starting to get used to. Her phone buzzed, a text from Marcus.
So, are you two actually together now, or are we still pretending? Nora stared at the message, then typed back, "How did you know?" "Please. I've seen the way Caleb looks at you. He hasn't looked at anyone like that since Rebecca. I'm not an idiot. We're taking it slow." "Good. He needs slow." "And Nora? Welcome to the family, for real this time." She set the phone down and closed her eyes, letting the reality sink in. She'd gone from a broke designer sleeping in the wrong hotel room to the girlfriend of a billionaire with actual job prospects and a complicated family that was starting to feel like her own. It was insane, all of it. But for the first time in years, Nora Hayes felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The next morning, Nora woke to the smell of pancakes and the sound of Max giggling. She padded out to the kitchen in Caleb's t-shirt and found both of them covered in flour. "We're making breakfast," Max announced. "Daddy let me crack the eggs." "I can see that," Nora said, taking in the mess. Caleb looked up and smiled at her in a way that made her heart skip. "Coffee, please?" She sat at the island while they finished making pancakes, watching Caleb teach Max how to flip them without making a disaster. It was domestic and sweet and everything Nora had never let herself want. After breakfast, after she'd helped clean up and said goodbye to Max, Caleb walked her to the elevator. "When can I see you again?" he asked. "Tomorrow? I'll have more details about the Harlow contract by then. Dinner at my place. I'll cook." "You really need to stop spoiling me." "Never." The elevator arrived and Nora stepped inside. Just before the doors closed, Caleb called out, "Nora?" "Yeah?" "I meant what I said last night, all of it." The doors closed on his smile, and Nora rode down to the lobby with a grin she couldn't suppress. Her phone rang immediately. Her mother. "You're dating him for real now, aren't you?" her mother said without preamble. "How did you—" "A mother knows." Also, Marcus Whitmore posted something cryptic on Instagram about welcoming someone to the family. "I might be old, but I'm not dead." Nora laughed. "Yes, Mom, we're dating for real now." "And the engagement?" "That part was complicated. But we're starting over, doing it right this time." Her mother was quiet for a moment. "Are you happy?" The question caught Nora off guard. When was the last time her mother had asked about her happiness instead of her stability? "Yeah," she said softly. "I think I am." "Then I'm happy for you. But honey?" "Yeah?" "Don't lose yourself in his world. You fought too hard to build your own to give it up now." It was the best advice her mother had ever given her. The meeting with Amanda Chen went better than expected. The Hamptons renovation was a massive project, and Amanda wanted Nora to head the entire design team. The budget was generous, the timeline reasonable, and the creative freedom exactly what Nora had always dreamed of. When she left Amanda's office with another signed contract, Nora stood on the sidewalk and let herself feel it. The success, the opportunity, the fact that she'd gone from drowning to swimming in less than 2 weeks. Her phone buzzed. "Caleb." "How did it go?" "I got it. Both contracts. I'm officially too busy to fail. I never had any doubt." "Celebrate tonight?" "I'll make your favorite." "You don't know my favorite? Then tell me and I'll learn." Nora smiled at her phone like an idiot, not caring who saw. That night, she went back to Caleb's apartment. Max was already asleep, and Caleb had made dinner, pasta with homemade sauce, nothing fancy, but made with care. They ate and talked about their days, about the contracts Nora had signed, about Max's latest dinosaur obsession. It felt normal, real, like something that could actually last. After dinner, they sat on the couch, Nora tucked under Caleb's arm, watching the city lights through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "I talked to my mother today," Caleb said. "Told her the truth about how we met." Nora sat up. "And?" She laughed for about 5 minutes. Then she said she'd suspected something was off, but decided the end result was worth the questionable beginning. He paused. "She likes you, Nora. Actually likes you, not just tolerates you. That's terrifying. It's a good thing. Trust me." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just being together. "Can I ask you something?" Nora said. "Anything." "What was she like?" "Rebecca?" Caleb tensed slightly, but he didn't pull away. "She was brilliant, a doctor, specialized in pediatric oncology. We met at a hospital fundraiser, and she spent the entire night talking about her patients instead of networking. I fell in love with her that night. How long were you married? 6 years. Max was 2 when she got diagnosed. She fought for 18 months, but the cancer was aggressive. His voice was steady but quiet. She made me promise I'd move on, that I wouldn't spend the rest of my life alone just because she was gone. I told her I would, but I didn't believe it. Couldn't imagine wanting anyone else. And now? He looked at Nora, his expression open and honest. Now I think she'd be happy I found you. You're nothing like her, but that's not a bad thing. You make me feel alive in a different way, like I'm building something new instead of trying to recreate what I lost. Nora kissed him, soft and slow, and tried to show him everything she couldn't put into words. When they pulled apart, Caleb smiled. Stay tonight, in my room this time. What about Max? He knows you stayed over last night, and he'll be thrilled to see you at breakfast again. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Nora stayed. They fell asleep tangled together, and when morning came, Max burst into the room demanding pancakes again. He climbed onto the bed between them, completely unfazed by finding Nora there. Are you my dad's girlfriend now? He asked. Nora and Caleb exchanged glances. Yeah, buddy, Caleb said. She is. Good. I like her. Max turned to Nora. Can you live here now? Not yet, but I'll visit a lot. Every day? As often as I can. Max seemed satisfied with that answer. He scrambled off the bed and ran to get his dinosaurs, ready to show Nora which ones had arrived since her last visit. Caleb pulled Nora close and kissed her temple. Welcome to the chaos. I think I like the chaos. Good. Because it's only going to get worse from here. He was right, but for the first time in her life, Nora was ready for it. The chaos Caleb warned about came in waves, some expected and some that blindsided Nora when she least expected it. 3 months into their real relationship, she was sitting in her new office, an actual office with her name on the door, rented with money from the Harlow contract, when her phone lit up with a call from a number she didn't recognize. Nora Hayes speaking? Ms. Hayes, this is Jennifer Park from The Times. I'm doing a piece on women entrepreneurs in New York, and I'd love to interview you about your recent success in the design world. Nora's first instinct was to say no. The press had been relentless since she and Caleb had gone public with their relationship, most of it focused on her background, her sudden rise, the Cinderella narrative everyone seemed desperate to write. But then she thought about what Caleb had said. Let them look. There's nothing to hide. What kind of piece? She asked. A feature on women who've built successful businesses despite obstacles. I understand you've recently landed several major contracts after a difficult period. Who told you about the difficult period? Jennifer hesitated. I did my research, but I'm not interested in tabloid gossip. I want to talk about the work. Something in her tone made Nora trust her. Okay. When? The interview happened 2 days later at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. Jennifer was younger than Nora expected, maybe 28, with the sharp focus of someone who actually cared about getting the story right. They talked for 2 hours. About Nora's education, her early struggles, the business partner who'd stolen from her. About the decision to keep going even when everything fell apart. About the night she accidentally walked into the wrong hotel room and how that mistake had somehow led her here. Can I ask about Caleb Whitmore? Jennifer said carefully. You can ask. There's been speculation that you've only succeeded because of your relationship with him. How do you respond to that? Nora had prepared for this question. She'd rehearsed responses with Caleb, practiced staying calm. But sitting there, drinking overpriced coffee and talking to a reporter who seemed genuinely interested in the truth, the prepared answers felt hollow. Caleb opened doors for me, she said honestly. I won't pretend he didn't, but I'm the one who walked through them. He got me the meeting with Richard Harlow, but I'm the one who won that contract with my proposal. He introduced me to people at the gala, but I'm the one who impressed them enough to hire me. So you're saying the relationship helped? I'm saying that's how the world works. People with connections get opportunities that people without them don't. I got lucky, but I also worked my ass off to deserve that luck. Nora leaned forward. And you know what? I'm tired of apologizing for it. Yes, I'm dating someone wealthy. Yes, that comes with advantages, but I'm also talented and I earned my place in this industry. Jennifer smiled. That's a good quote. Please don't make me sound like an entitled brat. I'll make you sound like what you are. Someone who's honest about the realities of success while also owning her achievements. The article came out 2 weeks later. It was fair, balanced, and portrayed Nora as someone who'd overcome obstacles without pretending those obstacles made her a saint. The comments section was predictably mixed. Some people praised her honesty, others called her a gold digger, but Nora found she didn't care as much as she thought she would. She was too busy working. The Harlow project consumed her days. The design team she'd assembled was small but talented, and watching her vision come to life was more satisfying than anything she'd experienced. The Hamptons renovation with Amanda Chen was equally demanding, requiring weekly site visits and constant problem-solving. Nora hired an assistant, then another designer. Her little firm was growing slowly but steadily into something sustainable. But the work meant less time with Caleb and Max, and that created its own complications. 4 months in, she and Caleb had their first real fight. It started small. Nora had to cancel dinner because of a client emergency. Then she missed Max's school performance because she was at a construction site in the Hamptons. Then she showed up to a Whitmore family event an hour late, exhausted and covered in plaster dust. Caleb didn't say anything at first. He was patient, understanding, supportive in all the ways she'd learned to expect from him. But patience had limits. "We need to talk," he said one night after Max had gone to bed. Nora looked up from her laptop where she'd been reviewing fabric samples. "About what?" "About the fact that you've been here twice in the last 2 weeks." "I've been busy. You know that." "I do know that. But Max doesn't understand why you keep promising to come over and then canceling." Guilt hit Nora like a physical blow. "I never promised." "You told him you'd help build his Lego set. You said you'd come to his soccer game. You said a lot of things, Nora." "I said I'd try. I never guaranteed." "He's 4. He doesn't understand the difference between I'll try and I'll be there." Nora closed her laptop, anger rising in her chest. "So what are you saying? I should give up my career to be available whenever Max wants me around?" "That's not what I'm saying." "Then what are you saying?" Caleb ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. "I'm saying we need to find a balance. You're building something important, and I'm proud of you. But you're also part of this family now, and that comes with responsibilities." "I never asked to be part of your family." The words came out harsher than she intended. Caleb's expression shuddered. "You're right," he said quietly. "You didn't ask for any of this. Maybe that's the problem." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm all in, Nora. I love you. I want you in my life and in Max's life. But I need to know you want that too, not just when it's convenient. I do want that. Then act like it." His voice rose, then immediately dropped. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have yelled." They stood in the kitchen, the space between them feeling wider than it was. "I don't know how to do this," Nora said finally. "I don't know how to be what Max needs and also build my career. I spent years fighting to get here, and now that I'm finally succeeding, I'm terrified of losing it." "I'm not asking you to lose anything. I'm asking you to make space for us." "What if I can't? What if I'm not capable of being the person you need?" Caleb crossed the space between them, taking her hands. "You are capable. You're one of the most capable people I know. But you're so scared of failing that you're sabotaging the parts of your life that are actually working. That's not fair. Isn't it?" His eyes searched hers. "You're brilliant at your job because you pour everything into it. But relationships require the same energy, and you keep holding back like you're waiting for this to fall apart." Nora pulled her hands away. "Because things always fall apart for me. My business failed. My ex stole from me. I was 1 bad month away from being homeless. Forgive me for being cautious. I'm not your ex, and I'm not going anywhere. You say that now. I'll say it forever if that's what it takes for you to believe me." They stared at each other, both breathing hard, both scared. "I don't want to lose you," Nora whispered. "Then stop pushing me away." She let him pull her close, let herself cry against his chest while he held her. They didn't solve anything that night, but they started talking, really talking, about fears and expectations and what they each needed to make this work. The next day, Nora blocked out Thursdays for Max. No meetings, no site visits, nothing but time with him. She also started saying no to projects that would overextend her, learning that sustainable success was better than burnout. It wasn't perfect. She still worked too much sometimes. She still felt the pull between her career and her relationship. But she was trying, and Caleb was patient, and slowly they found a rhythm that worked. 6 months after their first fight, Nora moved some of her things into Caleb's apartment. Not everything. She kept her own place, needing the independence, but enough that Max's eyes lit up when he saw her toothbrush in the bathroom. "Does this mean you live here now?" he asked. "Part-time," Nora said. "I'm still figuring it out." "Figuring out is okay. Daddy says grown-ups are always figuring things out." "Your daddy is a smart man." "I know. He told me." Nora laughed and chased Max through the apartment, tickling him until he squealed. When Caleb came home from work, he found them building a blanket fort in the living room, both covered in cushions and giggling. "What did I miss?" he asked. "We're making a castle," Max explained. "Nora says every castle needs a dragon, so we're going to find one." "A dragon? In Manhattan?" "We'll make it work," Nora said, grinning. Caleb looked at her, disheveled, happy, completely at home in his space, and fell in love with her all over again. That night, after Max was asleep, Caleb found Nora on the terrace, looking out at the city. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How different my life is now. 6 months ago, I was sleeping in the wrong hotel room and panicking about my future. Now I'm," she gestured around, "here, with you, with Max, building a business that's actually succeeding." "Any regrets?" "About 1,000, but none of them involve you." He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and they stood together watching the lights of Manhattan. "I want to marry you," Caleb said. "For real this time. Not fake, not for show, because I love you and I want you in my life permanently." Nora's heart stuttered. "Caleb, I'm not proposing, not yet. I know you're not ready." He turned her to face him. "But I want you to know that's where I'm headed. So when I do ask, you won't be surprised." "What if I say no?" "Then I'll ask again later, and keep asking until either you say yes or you convince me you actually mean no." "You're ridiculous." "I'm in love. It's basically the same thing." Nora kissed him, soft and slow, trying to show him what she couldn't quite say yet, that she loved him too, that she was getting closer to being ready, that for the first time in her life, forever didn't sound like a trap. The next several months were a blur of work and family and learning how to balance both. Nora's business grew. She hired 2 more designers and moved into a bigger office space. The Harlow Hotel opened to rave reviews, with several design publications praising her work. The Hamptons project was featured in Architectural Digest. She was becoming known not as Caleb Whitmore's girlfriend, but as Nora Hayes, the designer with the unique approach to commercial spaces. It felt good. Better than good. It felt earned. But success came with its own challenges. More clients meant more pressure, more publicity meant more scrutiny, and more time away from Caleb and Max meant more guilt. The guilt came to a head on Max's 5th birthday. Nora had promised to help plan the party. She'd sworn she'd be there for the whole thing. But the morning of the party, disaster struck at the Harlow site, a water main break that threatened to destroy weeks of work. She called Caleb, voice shaking. "I have to go to Brooklyn. The site is flooding, and if I don't get there now, we're going to lose everything." "Nora, it's Max's birthday." I know, and I'm so sorry, but I can't let this project fail." Silence on the other end. Then, "Do what you need to do." He hung up before she could explain further. Nora spent 6 hours at the construction site working with contractors to contain the damage. By the time she got back to the apartment, the party was over. Wrapping paper littered the floor, cake crumbs on plates. Max sitting on the couch with Caleb, looking at photos on a tablet. "Nora!" Max ran to her, then stopped. "You missed my party." "I know, buddy. I'm so sorry. There was an emergency at work." "There's always an emergency at work." Max's voice was small, hurt in the way only children could be. "You said you'd be here." "I wanted to be here, but sometimes grown-ups have to." "You promised." Tears welled in his eyes. "You promised, like you promised to live here. But you still have your other apartment. You promised like you promised to come to my soccer games, but you only came to 2. You promise a lot of things, and then you don't do them." Each word was a knife. Nora looked at Caleb, silently begging for help, but his expression was carefully neutral. "Max, go to your room," Caleb said quietly. "Nora and I need to talk." Max ran off, and Nora heard his bedroom door slam. "Caleb, I'm sorry. The flooding was catastrophic. And if I hadn't gone, I know. You had to save your project." His voice was flat, emotionless. "You always have to save your project." That's not fair, isn't it? You missed his birthday, Nora. His 5th birthday, the first one you were supposed to be here for as part of his life. I didn't plan for the water main to break, but you did plan to prioritize work over him. Again. Caleb stood and Nora saw how tired he looked. I defended you to him. Every time you canceled, every time you were late, I made excuses. I told him you were building something important, that you cared about us, that work was just demanding right now. But I'm tired, Nora. I'm tired of explaining why the person who says she loves us keeps choosing everything else. I do love you. Then show us. Not just when it's convenient, not just when work is slow, all the time, because that's what family means. Nora felt tears spill down her cheeks. I don't know if I can do this. Be what you need and also be successful. Every time I think I've found balance, something tips and I'm scrambling again. So figure it out, or don't, but stop stringing us along while you decide. Are you breaking up with me? Caleb closed his eyes. I'm asking you to choose, really choose. Not with words, but with actions. Show Max that he matters more than a flooded construction site. Show me that we're worth fighting for. I am fighting for you. You're fighting for your career, which is fine. I want you to succeed. But you can't build a life with someone while keeping one foot out the door. He walked to Max's room, leaving Nora standing in the wreckage of the party she'd missed. She left shortly after, going back to her own apartment, the one she'd kept as an escape route, the one that proved she wasn't fully committed. For 3 days, she and Caleb didn't speak. Nora threw herself into work, trying to outrun the guilt. But everywhere she looked, she saw reminders of what she was losing. Max's drawings on her office wall, the photo of the 3 of them at the estate, the ring she'd seen in Caleb's nightstand drawer, the one he was saving for when she was ready. On the 4th day, Elaine showed up at Nora's office. We need to talk, she said, walking in without invitation. If Caleb sent you, Caleb didn't send me. I came because I care about you both, and you're being an idiot. Nora blinked. Excuse me? Elaine sat across from her. You're sabotaging the best thing that's ever happened to you because you're scared. I get it. You've been hurt. You've lost things. You're terrified of failing. But Nora, you're failing right now by not showing up. I have responsibilities. So does every successful person. But somehow they manage to balance work and family. Why can't you? Because I'm not like them. I don't have a trust fund to fall back on if my business fails. I can't afford to coast. Every project is life or death for me. Is it? Or have you convinced yourself of that because it's easier than being vulnerable? Elaine leaned forward. You know what I think? I think you're using work as an excuse to avoid getting hurt. If you're always too busy, always too stressed, you never have to fully commit. And if Caleb leaves, you can tell yourself it was because of work. Not because you weren't enough. The words hit like a slap. That's not... It is true. And deep down, you know it. Elaine's expression softened. Nora, you are enough. You're talented, you're driven, you're good for my brother and amazing with Max. But you have to believe that, really believe it. Otherwise, you'll keep pushing away everyone who tries to love you. After Elaine left, Nora sat alone in her office for hours. She thought about all the times she'd canceled plans, all the promises she'd broken, all the ways she'd kept herself at a distance. She thought about Max asking if she was going to live there, about the hope in his voice every time she walked through the door, about how his face fell when she inevitably left. She thought about Caleb saying he loved her, about the ring in his drawer, about the life they could have if she just stopped being so scared. And she thought about who she wanted to be, not just successful, but happy. Not just surviving, but actually living. The decision came surprisingly easily once she stopped fighting it. Nora went home, not to her apartment, but to Caleb's. She used the key he'd given her months ago, the one she'd been too scared to actually use regularly. Caleb was in the kitchen making dinner. He looked up when she walked in, his expression carefully guarded. I want to give up my apartment, Nora said. He set down the knife he'd been using. What? My apartment. I want to give it up. Move in here, actually live here, not just keep clothes in the closet. She stepped closer. I've been keeping it as a safety net, but the only thing it's done is keep me from fully committing to this. To us. Nora, I'm not finished. She took a breath. I also want to hire another senior designer, someone who can handle site visits when I can't, someone who can take on client emergencies, so I'm not always the one running to put out fires. She met his eyes. I can't be everything to everyone, and I've been trying to be, and all it's done is make me fail at the things that actually matter. You haven't failed. I missed Max's birthday because I couldn't delegate. That's failing. Tears burned her eyes. I'm scared, Caleb. I'm so scared of losing my business that I've been losing you instead. But I can't do that anymore. You and Max, you're more important than any contract. Caleb closed the distance between them, cupping her face. Say that again. You're more important than any contract. You mean it? I mean it. And I'm sorry it took me so long to figure that out. He kissed her, deep and desperate, and Nora kissed back, pouring everything into it, all her fear, all her love, all her hope that it wasn't too late. When they pulled apart, Caleb rested his forehead against hers. Max cried himself to sleep last night. He thought you left because he wasn't good enough. Nora's heart shattered. Where is he? In his room. She went to Max's bedroom and found him sitting on his bed, playing half-heartedly with his dinosaurs. When he saw her, his face crumpled. I'm sorry I was mad at my party, he said. I didn't mean to make you leave. Nora sat beside him and pulled him into her lap. You didn't make me leave, buddy. I left because I was scared and stupid and made a really bad choice. That's not your fault. That's mine. But you came back. I'll always come back. And from now on, I'm going to be here more. Not just sometimes, really here. I'm moving in, and I'm going to come to your soccer games, and I'm never missing another birthday. Max looked up at her with those serious dark eyes. Promise? I promise. And this time I mean it. He hugged her so tight Nora could barely breathe, and she held him back, making a silent vow to be better, to do better, to deserve the love this little boy was offering her. Over the next few weeks, Nora restructured her entire life. She hired a senior designer named Michelle, who was brilliant and hungry and capable of handling the day-to-day operations Nora had been trying to manage alone. She gave up her apartment and moved all her things into Caleb's place, making it truly home instead of just a place she visited. She set boundaries with clients, made Thursdays and weekends sacred, learned to say no to projects that would consume her life. It was hard, harder than she'd expected. The first time she turned down a lucrative contract because the timeline would interfere with Max's school play, she almost called them back to say yes. But Caleb was there, reminding her what mattered. And Max was there, showing her that being present was worth more than any paycheck. Her business didn't collapse. If anything, it got stronger. Michelle brought fresh ideas, and the team Nora had built was capable of more than she'd given them credit for. Turns out, she didn't have to do everything herself. 8 months after moving in, Nora woke up on a Saturday morning to find Caleb and Max standing beside the bed, both grinning like conspirators. What? She said, suspicious. We made you breakfast, Max announced, and Daddy says we have a surprise. They led her to the terrace, where a table was set with pancakes and fruit and coffee. But what caught Nora's attention was the banner Max had clearly made himself, with crooked letters that spelled out, "Will you marry us?" Nora's breath caught. She turned to find Caleb on one knee, holding a ring box. I know I said I'd warn you, he said, smiling, but Max insisted we surprise you. I helped pick the ring, Max stage whispered. Caleb opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful ring that was so perfectly Nora it made her cry. Nora Hayes, you walked into my life by accident and became the best thing that's ever happened to me. You make me laugh. You challenge me. You love my son like he's yours, and I want this, us, forever. Will you marry me? For real this time? Nora looked at Caleb, then at Max bouncing excitedly beside him, then at the life they'd built together despite every obstacle. She thought about the terrified woman who'd slept in the wrong hotel room, sure she was about to lose everything. She thought about how far she'd come, how much she'd grown, how she'd learned that being vulnerable wasn't the same as being weak. Yes, she said, laughing through tears. Yes, I'll marry you. Max cheered. Caleb slid the ring on her finger and kissed her while their son danced around them celebrating. They ate breakfast on the terrace as a family, making plans for a wedding that would be real and small and theirs. Catherine would probably try to turn it into a spectacle, but Nora found she didn't care anymore what people thought. She knew what this was, what they were. Real. imperfect, worth fighting for. Later that day, Nora's mother called. Catherine had apparently already spread the news. "You're really doing this," her mother said, "marrying him." "I really am. Are you happy, honey?" Nora looked around the apartment, Max's toys scattered everywhere, Caleb in the kitchen making lunch, the life she'd built from nothing but a mistake and a chance. "Yeah, Mom, I'm happy." "Then that's all that matters." The wedding happened 3 months later in the gardens of the Whitmore estate, small and intimate with just family and close friends. Nora wore a simple dress, and Max was the ring bearer, taking his job so seriously that everyone cried. When Caleb said, "I do," Nora knew he meant it, and when she said it back, she meant it too. Not because everything was perfect. It wasn't. They still fought sometimes, still struggled to balance work and family, still had moments of doubt. But they chose each other. Every day, in big ways and small, they chose each other. 6 months after the wedding, Nora's firm won a major award for the Harlow Hotel design. She stood on stage accepting it, looking out at the audience where Caleb and Max sat in the front row, cheering louder than anyone. This was success, not the recognition or the money or the magazine features. This, having people who loved her, who believed in her, who celebrated her wins and held her through her losses. A year after that, Nora and Caleb stood in another hospital room, this time holding their newborn daughter. Max peered over the edge of the bassinet with wonder. "She's so small," he whispered. "You were this small once," Caleb said. "That's impossible. I was never that small." Nora laughed, exhausted and happy, and completely overwhelmed. She looked at Caleb over their daughter's head and saw the same emotion reflected in his eyes. They'd built this. From nothing but an accident and a lie, and the courage to make it real. 2 years after walking into the wrong hotel room, Nora Hayes, now Nora Whitmore, stood on the balcony of their apartment, watching the sun set over Manhattan. She thought about the woman she'd been, so desperate and drowning she'd thought one canceled flight was the end of the world. She thought about how wrong she'd been. Sometimes the end of one thing was just the beginning of something better. Sometimes getting lost led you exactly where you needed to be. Sometimes the worst mistake of your life turned out to be the best thing that ever happened. Caleb joined her on the balcony, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How glad I am that I walked into the wrong room. Best accident ever. The best." They stood together watching the city lights come on, surrounded by the life they'd built from nothing but chance and choice and love. And Nora finally understood what her mother had been trying to tell her all along. She'd always been enough. She just needed to believe it. The rest had simply been learning to let people in.